My name is Melissa, and my husband, Paul, is a light novel writer and a freelancer. He takes on various writing jobs, and I help him as a secretary in his private office. I was working with my husband as usual when I noticed it was 3 p.m. I thought about taking a break, but before I could, the front door slammed open. Both Paul and I looked upset. The person who entered was Paul's older sister, Donna. She's supposed to live at our parents' house, but for some reason, she comes over every day at 3 p.m., drinks tea, eats all the snacks we've gotten as gifts, and leaves. I was in the middle of working, but she barged in. "It's fine, right? I want my tea," she said. I was getting really annoyed. "Who are you talking to like that?" I thought. Donna flopped down on the couch, crossed her legs, and started eating our snacks loudly. "Tea, quick," she demanded. It was unbelievable. Donna was so rude and acted like the world revolved around her. She claimed to be a live streamer, but I wasn't sure how much she actually earned or how much of her work was real. She also said she worked from home. "Hey, you're my sister-in-law. Make me some tea," Donna ordered. She was treating me like a maid. Because of her attitude, our parents had scolded her before, but that was always the end of it. I didn't let it bother me much. I've known her since high school, so this wasn't new. "Do it yourself," I replied. "Huh? Don't talk back to me," she shouted. As she did, snacks flew out of her mouth and onto the floor. "Don't talk back. I'm the oldest daughter here. You need to listen to me. If you don't like it, get a divorce," she snapped. I was really angry at that comment, but the first to get frustrated was Paul. "That's enough. You're being a nuisance. Get out," he shouted. "What? Wait. Donna yelled as Paul stood up, grabbed her arm, and dragged her out of the room. She kept yelling, but Paul wasn't done yet. "If you come here using the spare key again, I won't forgive you. I'll tell Mom and Dad," Paul said, making sure Donna could hear him. At the front door, Donna was still whining, and Paul locked the door so she couldn't come back in. He quickly called our dad. "Hello, Dad." Donna came over again, he said. Wait a minute," Donna protested from the other side of the door. "My name is Melissa, and my husband, Paul, is a light novel writer and freelancer who takes on various writing jobs. I help him as his secretary in his private office. I was working with Paul as usual when I noticed it was 3 p.m. I was thinking about taking a break when suddenly, the sound of the front door slamming open echoed through the room. Paul and I both frowned. The person who entered was Paul's older sister, Donna. She's supposed to be living at our parents' house, but for some reason, she comes over every day at 3 p.m. She drinks tea, eats all the snacks we've gotten as gifts, and then leaves. I was still in the middle of work. "It's fine, right? I want my tea," Donna said casually. I couldn't believe it. This was really annoying. "Who are you talking to like that?" I thought, feeling frustrated. Donna plopped herself down on the couch, crossed her legs, and started eating our snacks loudly. "Tea, quick," she demanded. It was unbelievable. Donna acted so entitled, like the world should revolve around her. She claimed to be a live streamer, but I had no idea how much money she actually made. She also said she worked from home. "Hey, you're my sister-in-law. Make me some tea," Donna ordered. It felt like she was treating me like a maid. My in-laws have scolded her for this behavior before, but it never lasts. I wasn't surprised, though, since she's always been like this. I've known Donna since high school. "Do it yourself," I said, irritated. "Huh? Don't talk back to me," she yelled. At the same time, snacks flew out of her mouth and onto the floor. "Don't talk back. I'm the oldest daughter, and you should listen to me. If you don't like it, get a divorce," she snapped. I was really angry at that comment, but it was Paul who got frustrated first. "Enough, you're a nuisance. Get out," he shouted. "What? Wait, Donna protested as Paul stood up, grabbed her arm, and dragged her out of the room. She was still making a fuss, but Paul wasn't done. "If you use the spare key to come in again, I won't forgive you. I'm telling Mom and Dad," he said, making sure Donna could hear him. Outside the door, Donna kept whining, but Paul quickly locked the door to stop her from coming back in. He immediately called our dad. "Hello, Dad." Donna came over again, Paul said. Wait a minute," Donna shouted from outside. "I want to make sure your parents have a good time. Let's bring up the issue when the timing's right." "Yeah, let's do that. By the way, what kind of restaurant did you choose?" I printed out some options. Want to take a look? Okay, let's see them. I showed Paul the list of restaurants I had picked out. Since Paul had been working so hard, I wanted to be helpful in this situation. For the celebration, I planned to let his parents choose from the options I'd narrowed down. A week later, we pressed the intercom button at Paul's parents' house, but no one answered. That's odd. Mom and Dad should be home, Paul said. Oh, their car is missing. Maybe they went out shopping, or maybe they're buying things for our visit. Well, it doesn't matter. Let's just go in and wait. Paul used the house key to open the door. As we stepped inside, we heard hurried footsteps coming from the second floor. Donna, Paul's sister, came rushing down the stairs with a noisy clatter. Why didn't you answer the intercom? Donna shouted. Hello, sister-in-law, I said, as usual, with a polite but distant greeting. But there was something else behind Donna's sudden rush downstairs. You two set up everything for Mom and Dad's 60th birthday celebration, right? Donna asked. Yes, that's right. Why? Where is it? Show me. Huh? You said you weren't going to attend. I changed my mind. Show it to me. Paul showed her the details, and Donna grabbed the papers from him roughly. Wow, the great writer, huh? You must be doing so well. You picked such a fancy restaurant, Donna sneered, looking at the information Paul had printed. What's your problem? Paul snapped. Stop saying things like that. Why not? You must be making a lot of money, right? Just so you know, I'm making more than you, Donna replied with a smug smile. Donna always says things to put Paul down. If she really is earning multiple times his income, she must make over $100,000 a year, but there's no proof of this. Also, it was me, Melissa, who chose the restaurant. Okay, can you stop being so rude? I said to Donna. Donna suddenly stared at me intensely, making me feel uncomfortable. I pulled back and asked, what is it? Then, Donna said something outrageous. Here we go, Paul, now you've finally seen this woman's true colors, haven't you? She said with a smirk. What? Paul said, confused. Whatever, I'm looking forward to the celebration. See ya, Donna said, forcefully pushing both of us out of the entrance. For some reason, she took the restaurant document with her, creating more drama. Well, it's okay, we can just print out the details again later, and we can show the photos to my parents when we meet them, I said, trying to stay calm. It turned out that our in-laws had forgotten about our visit that day and had gone to a Sunday farmers market. They apologized later, and after finalizing the restaurant, we made the reservation. The day of the 60th birthday celebration arrived. Everyone was to meet at the restaurant. Donna and our parents arrived before us. We had an awkward moment with Donna, but we tried not to focus on it. However, when Donna looked at me with a smug smile, I couldn't shake the bad feeling it gave me. Despite that, we went into the restaurant and were shown to a private room. It was a traditional Japanese-style room, much more beautiful than the pictures online. As my father-in-law and mother-in-law were admiring the room and about to say something, Donna suddenly spoke up from behind us, grinning. Don't let yourselves get full, Dad and Mom, she said, mischievously. Then, Donna pointed at me and yelled, You're after our family's wealth, aren't you? Everyone was shocked, not just me, but also Paul, my father-in-law, and my mother-in-law. Wealth? What are you talking about? I had no idea what was going on. Are you crazy? We're just an ordinary middle-class family, Paul snapped at Donna. But Donna wasn't done. As the eldest daughter, I'm going to inherit this house. You're trying to target my parents too, aren't you? I won't let you fool me, she yelled. I really don't understand what you mean. Why would I do something like that? I asked, confused. I was completely confused and tried to ask Donna a question, but she didn't seem interested in answering. I've seen through you from the start, Donna said. You're a dangerous woman. You've gotten close to Paul, and this proves it. No way, Paul said. We've been dating since high school. If she wanted to marry someone rich, she would have married someone else. Donna just snickered at Paul's disbelief and started boasting. Normally, a woman who isn't after money wouldn't pick such expensive restaurants. Look at this list. All of these places are expensive, Donna said, handing over the documents she had taken from Paul a few days ago. So what? Paul asked, confused. Don't you get it? Donna sneered. This woman thinks she can do whatever she wants with your wealth. Men are so simple. Donna laughed, not noticing how hopeless the situation was becoming. I won't let her take our family's wealth. Paul, you understand now, right? This woman's true nature is showing. She's a nuisance. You should get a divorce. Donna said loudly. This is an order from your eldest sister. For the peace of the family, you should divorce her. Get out now, and don't ever come near my parents again. Donna yelled at me, but that's when Paul stepped in between us. What the hell are you talking about? Apologize to Melissa right now, Paul shouted. Wait, Dad, what's all this about money? This is ridiculous, Paul's father said, clearly confused. Melissa has been helping us set up the 60th birthday celebration. You should be helping, too, instead of doing something so stupid. No, Dad, look at this. Donna flustered and quickly handed the documents to her father. My father-in-law glanced over the papers. If you look at this, you'll understand, Donna said. She's picked incredibly expensive places for the celebration. She's trying to drain all our family's money, and it'll come from you and Mom, right? I'm not wrong, am I? My father-in-law sighed deeply. Paul, my mother-in-law, and I were all speechless. Huh? You think we're paying for the celebration? Paul's father asked, still confused. Donna's eyes widened in surprise. Of course, it would be a bit too much to have the person being celebrated pay for it. But wait, so this woman is still spending Paul's money however she pleases? Donna said, still acting like she was right. See, I was right all along. What are you talking about? Paul said, clearly upset. Melissa is working with me. You know my salary is also hers. There's no reason for anyone to complain about it. But, Donna said, turning to her mother for support. Mom, don't you agree? Donna asked, trying to escape the situation. My mother-in-law stood there quietly, then spoke up. Listen, she began. All the places on this list have memories of your father and me. Melissa specifically asked us about the places we have memories of. She wanted to find a nice restaurant for us. Based on that, Donna was stunned. The disrespectful things you've been saying are really shameful, my mother-in-law said, her voice shaking. Donna finally realized that her guesses and assumptions were wrong, but it was already too late to fix her mistakes. She was about to face the consequences of her actions. You've really messed up, my father-in-law said. You don't need to stay with us anymore. Go home. Wait a minute, Dad, why are you being so harsh? I'm your daughter. You can't just kick me out, Donna protested. But you were planning to not even show up, weren't you? Paul replied. Don't worry about the cancellation fee. I'll take care of it. Donna tried to argue, but my father-in-law continued. It seems we raised you wrong. We let you have your way, but now we've reached our limit. Leave the house. It's for the best. Don't make decisions without consulting me, my mother-in-law added. What do you think, Paul and Melissa? With a smile that was almost terrifying, my mother-in-law spoke cheerfully, while Donna looked at us with teary eyes, like she was begging for help. I was told by your older sister not to get involved, I said calmly. No, this is about my parents, Donna cried. Is that so? Then I'll keep my distance, my mother-in-law said. Please leave. Donna tried to grab me, but my father-in-law stepped in between us. Go home, he said sternly. Donna looked at him and shrank back. She quickly left the restaurant. We were able to finish the birthday celebration for my in-laws and enjoy our meal in peace. When we got home, it seemed Donna had been sulking at the house. My father-in-law repeated that she should leave. Donna cried and made a scene, so they started thinking about sending her to a rehab facility. I'm not sick, Donna shouted as she disappeared somewhere. Later, we heard that Donna found a job with a dormitory, but she couldn't keep it and kept changing jobs and addresses. Meanwhile, Paul and I continued working hard every day. Our relationship with my in-laws was excellent, and we enjoyed their company. Although we were a little concerned about what happened to Donna, we knew we didn't want to deal with her selfishness ever again. I just wanted to keep supporting my husband so he could focus more on his work.
When you break up with me, what do you plan to do? You can't live on a part-time salary, can you? Jeffrey, my husband, looks down on me with a face full of ease. He thinks I don't know anything, but I see right through everything. It'll be too late even if he cries and apologizes later. I am Georgia, 28 years old, in the first year of marriage. We don't have children yet, but I'm thinking of having some eventually, which is why I switched to a more flexible part-time job when we got married. However, I work the same hours as full-time employees and I'm also studying for a certification, so my days are pretty busy. Jeffrey is the same age as me. Maybe he can't shake off the feeling of living at his parents' house before we got married, because I can't see any willingness in him to share the household chores. On top of that, hey, Jeffrey, I always tell you not to leave your clothes lying around, right? And your socks are inside out. Ah, the laundry basket is too far. Seriously, it's a hassle just to get to the laundry. Laundry is something the washing machine does. All you have to do is gather the clothes and put them in. Are you surprisingly inefficient, Georgia? This is the kind of exchange we have every day. I couldn't see this side of him when we were dating. I can't believe he lacks self-sufficiency like this. But hey, I work for a top company. It's thanks to me that Georgia got used to a carefree part-time job, right? You should just do the household chores without complaining. While I am busy cleaning, doing laundry, preparing meals, and taking care of countless other household tasks, Jeffrey lies sprawled on the sofa, fiddling with his smartphone. It's frustrating, but I made the mistake of falling for his charm and his very handsome face before we were married. Still, I don't mind taking care of others, and although he doesn't do household chores, he works normally and asks me out on dates on weekends. Despite everything, I thought our marriage was going well. Hey, Georgia! Let's go to bed early. Sorry, I just finished my chores, and now it's study time. Go ahead without me. Again? I plan to return to full-time work someday, so I'm aiming to get a certification while we don't have children. I thought I had discussed this with my husband Jeffrey and that he was supportive. Georgia, for a part-timer, aren't you putting too much effort into studying for a certification? How much will your hourly wage increase by? It's not about the hourly wage increasing right now, but this certification is very important for the future. We've talked about this a lot. With this certification, if your hourly wage isn't going up, it's sad. You're being treated lightly as a part-timer. And you're rejecting an invitation from me, who earns a full-time salary. He looked down on me with a disdainful smile like never before. What do you mean? Whether it's full-time or part-time, it doesn't matter within a family, does it? If you helped out with the housework, I could. Don't argue! Who do you think allows you to eat every day? Without my earnings, you couldn't afford to be carefree with part-time work, right? I was stunned by his outburst, cutting off my words. Seeing my silence, his momentum didn't stop, as if he had won the argument. Besides, lately you've been all about part-time work and studying for certifications. Haven't you abandoned being a woman? Your makeup and clothes are too plain. If you keep this up, my eyes might wander, you know? Is that what you want? What? Someone else? There are plenty of women coming on to me, you know. You should be more aware of the danger. I knew he was not bad looking, but I didn't realize he was this arrogant. What are you saying? Do you realize you're saying the worst things? He snorted at me, trembling with anger. It's you making me say this. Instead of doing something meaningless like studying for certifications, you should just try to please your husband. I was dumbfounded by his words. I won't touch you for a while then. He headed to the bedroom, looking triumphant, and I silently watched him go. That night, I couldn't bring myself to enter the bedroom where he was until late. Sigh. What's gotten into him lately? After that night, his behavior got increasingly worse. He mocked my part-time work, complained about the housework, and laughed at my appearance. He's like a completely different person. Maybe I should suggest he see a psychiatrist. As Jeffrey's attitude toward me worsened, his overtime at work increased. I thought maybe he was becoming unstable due to the stress from work. On a weekday when I had the day off from my part-time job, I decided to look up local psychiatrists on my computer, worried about Jeffrey. That's when my smartphone rang.
Huh? That's unusual. It's Hannah.
The caller was my sister, Hannah. Hannah got married right after graduating from college. She was blessed with 2 children and, even now at 30, is devoted to raising them.
Hi, Hannah.
Oh, Georgia? How are you? Hannah and I have similar faces, but our personalities are entirely different. Hannah is good at being pampered, and she always wants to dress up. We're not particularly close sisters, so it was rare for her to contact me.
What's up with the sudden call?
Just, I thought maybe you were worried about something. Hannah sounded unusually cheerful for someone who was offering to listen to my troubles. More like, I'm worried because Jeffrey seems busy. Really? Jeffrey is busy with work? Yeah, he's been doing overtime almost every day. Wow, overtime every day? That sounds tough. Hannah laughed as if she found it amusing. I suppressed the urge to comment on her choice of words when it felt like Hannah was leaning in closer over the phone. Is everything okay with your marriage?
What?
I was speechless at the unexpectedly insensitive question. What's wrong? Not answering means.
Why do I have to tell you anything, Hannah?
Whether she knew I was blushing or not, Hannah laughed triumphantly. I knew it. Your marriage is in trouble, right? I was worried because you lack sex appeal.
I don't need your concern, Hannah.
You're getting so irritated, it shows you're not at ease. For some reason, Hannah sounded even more delighted. Georgia, it's so sad you're newlyweds and your husband doesn't pay attention to you. Shall I teach you how to attract a man's affection? Repulsed by her one-sided offer, I yelled, "No, thank you," and hung up immediately. Jeffrey, and now Hannah, what's going on? I should have realized then. The strange behavior of the 2 people closest to me was actually deeply connected.
I'm home.
You're finally back, and you smell strongly of alcohol. Jeffrey, who had been doing overtime, started going out for drinks after work frequently. Tonight, he came home in the middle of the night, saying something about celebrating the promotion of the husband of the sister of a senior colleague's wife.
Why are you so drunk celebrating the promotion of someone you hardly know?
Frustrated with his incoherence, I decided to drag him to a psychiatrist the next day, if necessary. I was dragging Jeffrey, who had fallen asleep drunk at the entrance to the bedroom. Dragging him, who was heavier than me, was a struggle, and it took quite a while. During that, his smartphone, sticking out of his pocket, started receiving a barrage of messages.
Annoying. He should have put it on silent mode.
I picked up the smartphone about to fall from his pocket and inadvertently looked at the screen. The message notifications displayed my sister Hannah's name.
What? Why is Hannah sending so many messages to Jeffrey?
After hesitating for a while, I used Jeffrey's finger to unlock the fingerprint lock and decided to read the messages. The opened messages were filled with flying heart emojis, all too sugary.
You drank too much today, huh? I'd be happy if you remember me with your hangover. I'll send you the lovey-dovey video from today. It turned out great.
There were at least 10 messages like that.
This text, it's definitely Hannah. Jeffrey, it wasn't a drinking party. What video?
My question was immediately answered by a video sent from her. Upon opening the video, I was filled with disgust and threw his smartphone.
What is that? Jeffrey and Hannah,
The video played on the screen showed Jeffrey and Hannah in the midst of an act. After seeing that, I rushed to the bathroom, feeling nauseous. Even after emptying everything from my stomach, I still felt sick. Outside the bathroom, Jeffrey's smartphone continued to receive messages. Determined, I stepped out of the bathroom and looked at the messages on the smartphone.
Georgia will never notice, she's so clueless. How much longer do you want to keep this up?
I was triggered by the messages from Hannah on Jeffrey's smartphone, completely belittling me. Leaving Jeffrey lying in the hallway, I went to bed alone. But not to sleep. Sleep was out of the question. The wife's sister and the sister's husband brazenly having an affair. His recent arrogant behavior and her provocative calls all made sense now. And to think, they made bets on not getting caught cheating.
How low do you have to think of someone? I'll never forgive this.
I tightly gripped his smartphone and my own, my hands shaking.
Georgia! Why did you leave me lying in the hallway last night? My body hurts because of that.
The next morning, Jeffrey got up from the hallway, making a fuss. Inside, I thought, you slept so soundly, yet you complain, but I didn't say it out loud.
Oh.
Jeffrey. I'm such a terrible wife, sorry. Jeffrey was too heavy. I gave up halfway through. I raised my voice louder than Jeffrey and threw myself at his feet.
A wife who lets her husband sleep in the hallway is a failure. And to think I slept soundly in a warm-down comforter. What a terrible wife I am. Yeah. Terrible wife. I got cold.
Initially confused, Jeffrey, always easily pleased, quickly got into the spirit. This was convenient, so I exaggerated my crying act even further. Really? I can't even do this. I don't deserve to be beside perfect Jeffrey.
That's right. Looks like Georgia finally understands my greatness. Yes, someone as inadequate as me doesn't deserve to be the wife of a man like Jeffrey.
That's right.
You don't deserve to be. As punishment for letting Jeffrey sleep in the cold hallway, divorce is inevitable.
Yeah. Divorce is inevitable.
There's someone more suitable. I'll step back. Oh. Please do. Divorce it is. Divorce it is. Huh?
Without giving Jeffrey a chance to lower his excitement, I presented him with the divorce papers I had already filled out.
Here. Now Jeffrey can be free from the chains of marriage to me. Free from Georgia?
I nodded while forcing a pen into Jeffrey's hand.
Yes. Just sign here and here. Wow. Such beautiful handwriting. Truly impressive. No wonder we weren't a match.
We weren't a match. I'm too great.
That's right. Jeffrey is too great. Here, sign this. Perfect. I'll take care of submitting this to City Hall, maybe in about 3 days. In 3 days, divorce, isn't it too sudden?
Snatching the pen back from a hesitating him, I glanced at the clock.
Oh my. Look at the time. We need to have breakfast. Get dressed and go to work. Everyone's waiting for reliable Superman. That's right. They're waiting for reliable me. Let's eat.
After eating the breakfast prepared on the dining table and changing into the clothes laid out in order, he went off to work as usual. I hadn't expected him to fall for such flattery. How simple-minded he must be. I'm so ashamed to have chosen that man as my husband. Dwelling on the past was pointless. I had 3 days to perfectly arrange everything. Though I had no appetite, I forced myself to eat breakfast and went to work with the divorce papers in hand. And then, 3 days later, with everything prepared, I faced the last night as Jeffrey's wife. Tonight is the climax. Muttering that, I crawled into bed. Ever since finding out about Jeffrey and Hannah's relationship, lying in the same bed with Jeffrey became unbearable for me, so I prepared a sleeping bag in the living room and slept in it, curled up tightly like a cocoon. Moreover, since making him write the divorce papers, I found it impossible to even speak to him. Georgia, about the divorce. The day I made him sign the divorce papers, he came home completely calm. He spoke with a serious face, but I had no intention of responding. The moment Jeffrey addressed me, I stopped cooking, didn't meet his eyes, and continued staring blankly at one point with an expressionless face.
Georgia? What's wrong?
No matter what Jeffrey said, I remained impassive, not moving an inch. Thus, leaving him with a strained smile, he hastily went to take a shower. During these 3 days, every time he tried to speak to me, I avoided conversation by staring vacantly into space. Yet, tonight was for delivering the final blow to Jeffrey and Hannah, so I had to make one last contact with him. I snuck into bed and listened intently for any sound in the hallway. Sure enough, I could hear Jeffrey's unattended footsteps approaching. Georgia. Jeffrey called out in a soft voice as he entered the bedroom. You finally came to our marital bed. Georgia. Everything from his way of speaking to the tone of his voice grated on my nerves. Suppressing my nausea, I lured Jeffrey in as much as possible. Then, Jeffrey quickly got carried away and tried to climb on top of me. Come on, stop ignoring me and tell me why you suddenly started making a fuss about divorce. I endured the revulsion I felt toward Jeffrey trying to speak in a cloying voice. Mistaking my silence for tears, he stroked my curled-up back from atop the comforter.
Georgia, you were just lonely because I was always working late, weren't you? You don't really want a divorce, right? Just be honest.
He wore a narcissistic smile.
And what are you going to do if you leave me? You can't live on a part-time salary, you know?
At that point, after still being talked down to by him, I reached my breaking point.
Stay away!
I jumped up and aimed the frying pan I had kept by the pillow at Jeffrey.
Wow!
Startled by my sudden reaction, he recoiled away from me.
What do you mean, be honest? I know everything! How could you have an affair with your wife's sister? Disgusting! Georgia, what are you talking about? Have you gone mad from loneliness?
Even then, he tried to feign innocence, showing a repulsive grin, which I glared at with all my might.
I said I know everything, didn't I? The messages and videos from the days you lied about having a drinking party and met Hannah. I have all the evidence. Messages and videos? You can't be serious. You snooped through my smartphone? It was incessantly noisy with notifications. Besides, I don't want to be criticized by someone with such revolting sensibilities, who lies about meeting Hannah and even records such acts on video.
I shouted, waving the frying pan I had thrust in front of Jeffrey's nose. Finally caving, Jeffrey pouted and admitted to the infidelity.
It's not like that. I really liked you, but Hannah came on to me, so I just... So you easily went along with your wife's sister? It's too late for any excuses.
Faced with my unrelenting anger, all he could do was sulk. But... I like Hannah with her makeup.
Huh? Hannah's makeup?
As I stood confused, he started explaining as if it were the most natural thing. I guess I'm just the type who likes flashy people. I only realized it after getting involved with her, so it's not really my fault, right?
You should have realized that before marrying me. Now, I really don't see the point of our marriage.
At this point, I could only feel defeated. While I was dumbfounded, he continued to talk like a child.
It's not like that. I basically prefer Georgia. You take care of me, you're competent at work, smart. I liked your face too, it was just the flashiness that was missing.
Ah. I see, so you just went for Hannah because she looks just like me, like that makes any sense. Either way, it's unforgivable. My anger surged once again, and Jeffrey, acting like a spoiled child, finally started to whimper.
But, you see, when I look at Hannah, it's like seeing you dressed up flashy, and it excited me. It was just a moment of madness.
Someone, please praise me for not swinging the frying pan I was holding at Jeffrey. After a moment of silence, a scream erupted from my smartphone on the pillow.
What the heck is going on here? Eh? What?
Startled, Jeffrey looked at me as I half smiled and gestured towards the smartphone with my chin. What do you mean what? Your affair partner, that's who. I had contacted Hannah during the day, preparing for tonight's showdown. I told her I knew everything about them. I instructed her to answer the phone tonight without making a sound and just listen in on the speaker. Normally loud Hannah seemed genuinely afraid of her family finding out about her relationship with Jeffrey. This time, she listened quietly to what I said. I crawled into bed, called Hannah, and left the speaker on. So, I successfully let her hear Jeffrey's pathetic excuses.
You said I was cuter, prettier, more charming than Georgia, right? And now you're saying it's just because I'm flashy. What does that mean?
I had anticipated that Hannah wouldn't be able to stay silent till the end. Sure enough, she started making a fuss.
Hey, Jeffrey! Are you listening? You like me, right? It's more fun with me than with Georgia, right?
Initially shocked, Jeffrey seemed to grasp the situation. He sighed deeply and replied to Hannah over the phone with an exasperated voice. That's not true at all. You heard it. I just liked Hannah's flashiness.
That's awful. Terrible, terrible, terrible. I should be more attractive than Georgia.
But Hannah, everything you talk about is crazy or amazing, and it's not interesting. The only advantage you had was looking like Georgia, but wearing flashy makeup.
I'm not flashy. I'm glamorous.
What a low-level conversation. It's disheartening that these two are currently my family. So, what are you two planning to do now? With my coldest voice, the two finally stopped their pointless argument. Jeffrey, on the bed, said, I never thought we'd get caught. I'm truly sorry. It's crazy to have a relationship within the family. Nobody would suspect.
So, you were aware it was crazy. If a simple apology was enough, we wouldn't need lawyers or family courts. I'm sorry. Really sorry. Georgia, don't submit the divorce papers we wrote earlier.
No way. Absolutely impossible. Just facing you now makes my skin crawl, let alone continuing a marital life. Finally, a sense of crisis seemed to dawn on Jeffrey. To my surprise, he started to cry far more than earlier.
Wait! It's embarrassing to have a divorce history. Choosing Hannah as a partner proves I'm genetically in love with you, right?
Ranting and crying, Jeffrey's face was a mess of tears and snot. Even his once favored face would cool 1,000-year love at this level. So Georgia, you're divorcing Jeffrey. Suddenly having a divorce history, poor you. Hannah still misunderstood she had something over me. I kindly corrected her misunderstanding. What are you talking about? You're getting divorced too, right? We'll both be divorcees. Hannah's tone changed over the phone.
No way! Hey, Georgia! Don't tell my husband! It'll be really bad! I'm sorry. I'll do anything. Georgia, please.
Too bad. I've already shared the video with your brother-in-law. After that, I heard Hannah scream and presumably drop her smartphone. That drop sound was the last I heard from Hannah. And Hannah wasn't the only one who screamed.
The video, eh? The one with me and Hannah? You're kidding. You sent it to the president.
That's right. Jeffrey, you're definitely losing your job now. Seeing Jeffrey tremble and turn pale, I was able to smile for the first time in days. In fact, the prestigious company where Jeffrey worked is run by Hannah's husband. The meeting between Jeffrey and me was initially introduced by my brother-in-law. Hannah, my sister, used to boast about marrying one of her husband's subordinates, but who would have thought she'd air with that very subordinate?
Please! Tell the president that the video is fake. From now on, you can use all my salary however you like.
Jeffrey, desperate not to lose his prestigious job title, pleaded earnestly. I'm not interested in that. After all, I'm going to surpass your current salary easily.
Eh?
I continued to confront Jeffrey with more facts. I passed the tax accountant exam I was studying for. I'll become a full-time employee at the office where I'm currently working part-time from next month. Eventually, I plan to go independent. Hearing the future plans I had also discussed with Jeffrey, he gaped as if hearing them for the first time.
Eh? The exam you were studying for wasn't for a bookkeeping certificate for part-time work.
When did I ever say I was taking a bookkeeping exam? I nearly fell off the bed I was sitting on. Clearly, I had chosen the wrong marriage partner. Because there's no way you could become a tax accountant. It's a lie. Jeffrey, who always saw me as someone beneath him, and I, who couldn't stand being under the same roof with him anymore, got up from the bed.
A husband who can't even do housework and just acts arrogantly, even if he hadn't committed adultery, is out of the question. We'll never meet again. Goodbye.
Saying that, I slammed the frying pan I had been holding onto the bed. Then, I changed into the clothes I had hidden under my pajamas and grabbed my prepared luggage. I headed to a hotel near my workplace, which I had booked in advance. The next day, I filed the divorce papers and became officially single. My ex-husband Jeffrey was forced to resign after being sued by the president for getting involved with the president's wife, becoming successfully unemployed. As for Hannah, she was naturally granted divorce with custody going to her husband and minimal visitation rights for the children. She was cut off by all relatives and seems to be struggling with her first job hunt. However, neither of them could escape the compensation demanded in the double divorce lawsuits, so both are working day and night, regardless of the job type. As for me, my single life after divorce has been quite comfortable, allowing me to study whenever I like. There are certainly no inside-out socks lying around. As for work, Hannah's ex-husband, apologizing for introducing such a stupid man, introduced me to several of his entrepreneur friends, and my clientele has been steadily increasing. Achieving my dream of independence might not be far off. Your land is now my land. I already requested the construction.
What? But that land is...
My surprise was cut short as my mother-in-law Madison, with her shrill voice, interrupted me.
A wife who talks back to her husband is unwanted. All you need to say is understood and keep it at that.
Facing Madison's triumphant expression, I was at a loss for words. That land had already been leased to a corporation, with plans for an apartment building underway. The rent for the land was supposed to be deposited next month. I had made sure to inform Kevin about this.
Madison, about that land. You just need to keep quiet. Understood?
Every time I tried to tell the truth, Madison would shout over me. Finally, my anger erupted. Understood. While looking at my in-laws and husband smiling with satisfaction, I cursed them in my mind. Just wait and see. I can't wait to see you come begging. My name is Grace. I'm a 45-year-old housewife. Using my experience from studying abroad for 2 years during college, I've been a teacher at a German language school for adults and have worked there for 23 years now. Interacting with many students has been very fulfilling. My husband, Kevin, is also 45. He joined as a student at the German language school, which is how we met. Of course, I had no intention of getting involved with a student, so I rejected all the times he asked me out on a date during his enrollment, but Kevin persisted even after leaving the school, and, eventually, I was won over and we started dating. Kevin was very gentlemanly during our dates, and our relationship progressed smoothly. After dating for about 2 years, I accepted his proposal, and we got married when I was around 30. However, as soon as we got married, Kevin's attitude changed 180 degrees, as if to show he didn't value what he had obtained, turning into a classic henpecked husband. At first, we fought often, but I didn't have the energy or willpower to argue every day, so I mostly gave in, and that became the norm. Kevin has a younger sister, Mia, 5 years his junior, who seemed to keep her distance from the family home. My first impression during our greeting was that she was a straightforward woman, but according to Kevin, she was a stubborn and spoiled person for a woman. Thus, my interactions with Mia were minimal, and even after several years of marriage, we only saw each other possibly during Christmas. 10 years into our marriage, at the age of 40, Kevin and I still hadn't had children. I had gone through examinations at a gynecologist at the in-laws' insistence, but there was nothing wrong with me. However, as soon as I reported this, Kevin became furious.
Are you trying to say it's my fault?
No, that's not what I mean. I tried to clarify, but Kevin wouldn't listen and threw the remote control against the wall beside me.
Don't you get cocky with me. I'm never going to the doctor's. It's obviously your fault. Change the clinic. Don't ever go back there again. Got it?
Kevin then stormed out of the house, taking only his wallet and mobile phone. I picked up the broken remote, tears streaming down my face. This wasn't the marriage I had dreamed of, but still, I chose not to divorce, perhaps because of the fond memories I had with the kind Kevin. Eventually, at 43, the in-laws said that having a child at my age would look bad, and I gave up on the idea of having children. Even when I told Kevin, he didn't seem to care, making me realize I was the only one bothered by it. Kevin and I live about a 5-minute walk from the in-laws' house, and they visit our home about 3 times a week. Honestly, I'm not fond of the in-laws. My mother-in-law Madison constantly makes backhanded comments, and father-in-law John always talks about my appearance and our sex life. Like someone important once said, as you get older, your eggs deteriorate or something. I'm not saying Grace's eggs have deteriorated. But after 40, well, if anything happens, it would be a problem for us too, right? It's fine, isn't it? Even if they have deteriorated, Grace's body has something appealing about it, so Kevin, you still enjoy it, right? Oh, stop it, John. No one would feel good being around such vulgar conversations. I served coffee in silence, hoping the in-laws would leave soon. Look, I had Kevin when I was 20 and Mia at 25. Oh, not that being young is everything, but recovery after childbirth is definitely quicker when you're younger, right? You do look very young.
No way. I mean, compared to the moms of Kevin's classmates, I might be on the younger side.
I forced a smile at Madison, who seemed utterly pleased with herself for just being mentioned. Madison took pride in having had Kevin young and liked to make a point of being younger than others around her. And if someone didn't agree or play along, she'd treat them coldly, as if they were in the wrong. So, every time we met, I had to play along with Madison's reckless self-promotion. Honestly, Madison's appearance isn't that great. She's of average height and build, with natural curly hair, just a typical grandmother you'd find anywhere. She looks older than she is, and if someone guessed she was 70, it would be believable. Yet, she seems unaware, genuinely believing she's a hidden gem, almost a witch of beauty.
Well, it's sad we won't see cute grandchildren, but it's better than having useless ones added. Yeah, if we don't have kids, they'd probably take care of us instead.
The living room, filled with crude words, felt incredibly uncomfortable despite being my own home. And the in-laws would leave after saying whatever they wanted to say, feeling satisfied. Then one day, I got a call from Dad. It was about my paternal grandfather's passing and that I was included in the will. Dad's family was considered one of the notable families in the area. As the youngest with 5 older siblings, Dad didn't inherit much and lived doing what he wanted. So, our family wasn't particularly wealthy. However, being the only grandchild, my grandfather left me a piece of land. The inheritance included the land and some cash for expenses related to inheriting it. Even after paying inheritance tax, the amount was more than enough to live comfortably, making me wonder if it was all a dream. But the land was too large to build a house on, and I wasn't confident about using it wisely. Dad suggested renting it out to a company interested in building an apartment. Just the land rent would allow me to live freely without worrying about management. Since it wasn't expected to be inherited and no one in the family was particularly attached to it, the decision to lease it out was made quickly. I informed Kevin about this. He seemed to have started to think about something but only replied one word. Understood. And then went back to reading his book alone. I thought that was the end of the discussion, but it turned out Kevin had his own plans, which came to light unexpectedly one day. It happened during a weekend, with the in-laws over at our house as usual. Ignoring me cleaning up the kitchen alone, Kevin suddenly spoke up while snacking on the coffee and cookies I had served. Your land is now my land. I already requested the construction.
What? But that land is…
My surprise was cut off by Madison's shrill voice interrupting.
A wife who talks back to her husband is unwanted. All you need to say is understood and keep it at that.
I didn't know what to say to Madison, looking victorious. That land was already leased to a corporation, with plans for an apartment building underway. The rent for the land was supposed to be deposited next month. I had made sure to inform Kevin about this.
Madison, about that land.
You just need to keep quiet. Understood? Every time I tried to tell the truth, Madison would shout over me. Finally, my anger erupted. Understood. While looking at my in-laws and my husband smiling with satisfaction, I cursed them in my mind. Just wait and see. I can't wait to see you come begging. I decided to do something I had been hesitating about for a long time. Renew my long-expired passport and get in touch with a friend living abroad. My friend was surprised when I told them about my plan, but they agreed to help. It was a bit tough to carefully proceed with the plan before Kevin found out about the land, but thinking about my bright future made it enjoyable. Just when everything was ready, Kevin received a call from the construction company about the land. One day, when he came back from work, he stood at the entrance, furious.
You tricked me.
With that one sentence, I knew exactly what he was talking about. Trying hard to keep my face from showing anything, I answered Kevin. What are you talking about? He seemed to really dislike my response. Shaking with anger, Kevin glared at me.
It's about that land. I got a call from the construction company. They can't take our request because there's another building plan in motion.
Is that so? I thought I told you.
What? A wife is supposed to follow what her husband decides, right? Stop the apartment building project immediately. You said understood, didn't you?
His selfish reasoning left me with nothing but a sigh, tired from work. Kevin, grabbing my collar and threatening me. Didn't scare me at all since everything was already prepared. There's nothing I can do. That place has already been leased out to a company.
What?
I told you, didn't I? The land is in my name, but the construction on it is under the company's name. It's a leasehold. I receive the land rent and don't get involved with the building. I explained this, but you didn't understand, did you? Kevin, failing to comprehend, let go of me and looked stunned. Facing him directly, I continued. So, let's get a divorce.
What? Why would it come to that? Are you serious?
Kevin finally seemed to realize I was quietly furious and started to panic. Seeing his pitiful state, I entered the house and moved to the living room. Kevin, following me and trying to gauge my mood, seemed smaller despite being bigger than me.
Grace, I'll respect your plan this time, so please reconsider the divorce.
Even now, Kevin's condescending tone made me look at him with contempt. He was completely intimidated by my gaze.
Why should I need your respect for decisions about the land I inherited? What? Well, you seem to be misunderstanding something. That land is mine. I'm the one inherited the land. You have no right to dictate anything about it.
Kevin was quiet for a while as he listened to me, but as soon as he heard he had no rights, he lashed out.
Disrespecting your husband like that, who do you think is providing for you?
Oh, since we split all living and housing expenses equally, I'm living on my own money.
What?
Did you not realize that? You really weren't interested, were you? I pulled out the household ledger and opened it to this month's page. Kevin contributed $1,000, and I also added $1,000, making $2,000 for living expenses. Plus, I pay the rent for our apartment and utilities from my account. Which means while saying it's a split, I'm paying more. As you can see, I can live on my own, and being with you just means I'm paying unnecessary money.
That's a lie.
But you've been using more than $2,000 for your allowance while only contributing $1,000 to the house since we got married.
That's because Mom said that was enough.
There it is, always mom, mom. So annoying, you mama's boy.
Mama's boy.
Kevin, taken aback by my words, looked incredulous. To anyone looking in, Kevin, who always discusses everything with his mom and expects her support as a matter of course, is a perfect example of a mama's boy. Yet, he seemed to have no self-awareness of this fact. Anyway, if you're going to continue living there, you'll need to start paying for it yourself. I've already changed the withdrawal account, so as of today, I'm leaving this place and won't pay anything.
What do you mean you're leaving?
Ignoring Kevin's words, I took the suitcase I had prepared earlier out of the closet and headed for the entrance. In fact, I had already moved out my belongings. I had been moving them out little by little without being noticed, and Kevin hadn't realized it at all. It was a bit sad to think he was that uninterested in me, but honestly, it worked out for the best. Kevin followed me to the entrance, watching me leave the house in a panic. In front of him, I took off my wedding ring and placed it on the shoe cabinet.
Are you really leaving? You'll regret this.
I'd regret more staying with you.
What about my meals?
Are you serious?
Make them yourself.
I was utterly astounded that Kevin was worried about his meals at a time like this. He looked utterly natural, expecting me to cater to him, but when I firmly responded, he was in shock and froze. Not wanting to look at Kevin's face even for a second longer, I left the house I had lived in for 15 years. I was busy with preparations for the next few days, running around for procedures and whatnot. Then I received a call from Madison. Reluctantly answering, I heard her shrill voice through the phone.
What's this about the land being used for an apartment building? And divorcing Kevin after enduring 15 years when you could have left after 3 years without children, how ungrateful can you be?
Madison, the apartment was already decided. The divorce from Kevin is due to a lack of trust, and the reason we didn't have children is that Kevin didn't cooperate with fertility treatments. That boy is healthy. Funny, so am I. Madison screamed in frustration over the phone, and I found her cartoonish yelling somewhat amusing.
Anyway, I'll be seeking compensation from you for deceiving us and for making Kevin sad. Make sure you pay for what you've done. Enough with the Kevin. I'm giving Kevin back to you, so please enjoy each other's company forever. And the compensation should come from Kevin. I'll have my lawyer contact you, so don't run away. Please pass that message. You're the wife, how dare you talk like that?
Madison kept screaming, but I hung up without caring. I was amazed at how much I could say once I had let go, and it felt like a weight had been lifted off my shoulders. A month after leaving the house, it was finally time to discuss the divorce. The lawyer said the basic conditions were set, but Kevin wouldn't sign the divorce papers until he saw me. Reluctantly, we arranged to meet at a restaurant for the discussion. The in-laws stubbornly suggested their house, but I insisted on a private room in a restaurant. Meeting the in-laws and Kevin, their unnaturally cheerful faces made me suspect they were plotting something. "Grace, it's been a while. Have you been well?"
Yes, thanks to you.
As I responded, Madison approached with a sweet voice.
Grace, I'm sorry for everything. Let's talk about the future today.
That sounds good. I had a hunch about what the in-laws and Kevin were planning. Probably something like divorcing in exchange for a portion of the land rent. As expected, Madison mentioned the inheritance as soon as we sat down. "Do you know the land value of that place?"
I'm aware. I was shocked. And you're also receiving a proper amount of money, right? We need to properly distribute the property.
Madison's shallow words made me laugh out loud. Madison, initially stunned by my laughter, quickly turned red and glared at me.
What's so funny? Madison, it seems you don't know. The inheritance I received doesn't become marital property. What?
Madison let out a strange noise and widened her eyes. It seems she was blinded by the amount of money and didn't bother to check such basic things.
So, we don't get anything?
That's right. After my words, Madison let out a silent scream and slumped in defeat. From her outfit, it was clear she had planned to live lavishly off my inheritance. The fact that I could hear them worrying about payments was proof enough.
Aren't you going to support your husband's home as his wife?
John, who had been silent until now, spoke up, and I gave him a cold look. Then, without a word, I pressed a button on my mobile phone. John's crude remarks started playing back.
John who says such things, Madison who goes along with it without stopping him, and a husband who turns a blind eye to it all. I don't need any of you. I will live my life. Do you think you can just do as you please?
If necessary, we can take this to court. This will be submitted as evidence.
If you do that, my reputation will. Well, it will be socially troublesome for you.
John was left speechless, slumping just like Madison. With the noisy bystanders finally quiet, I turned to Kevin. Kevin, pale-faced, seemed to have an idea. "I'll help manage the money since it'll be tough on you alone. You can do whatever you like with it." "How about that? Why would I have to involve you in anything after the divorce? I already have someone to discuss the inheritance with. Come in." As I called out, a woman entered. Kevin looked at her in surprise. "It's been a while, big brother." It turned out that Mia had connections with my overseas friend while I was planning things. My friend told me the in-laws favored Kevin, treating Mia harshly. Kevin accepted this treatment without protest, benefiting from the situation and even blaming Mia for his own actions. Kevin went to private schools, while Mia was only allowed to go to a public high school and received no financial help for college. Mia worked through college, becoming a freelance writer after graduation. Just as her career was taking off, the in-laws started asking for financial support, coinciding with my marriage to Kevin, which surprised me. Since then, Mia and I have been in touch. And now we have become close friends.
Mia and I have hit it off, and she'll be helping me with the German language school I'm planning to start abroad.
Abroad? What can you do overseas? Have you forgotten my job? I studied abroad for 2 years and speak German daily at work. I've always planned to go abroad if it weren't for our marriage.
What about me? I don't speak German.
Do you understand what divorce means? It means I'm stopping living life with you. Oh. Kevin finally grasped the situation, his face turning pale. I took the filled-out divorce papers from Kevin, who was now silent, and left the restaurant with Mia and my lawyer. I submitted the divorce papers to the office and moved abroad. My belongings were already at the new home, so I could start my new life without any issues. I'm room sharing with Mia, respecting each other's work. Mia is becoming a successful writer, working towards her dream of being a novelist. Seeing her work so hard on writing stories in her spare time from work, I feel like I need to try my best as well. Kevin stayed in our old apartment for a while, but had to leave due to lack of savings and the alimony payments. Back at the in-laws' house, he's consumed by their demands, left with no money and exhausted from taking over the chores Madison abandoned. The in-laws also might soon lose their home too without Mia's support. Drop dead. Mia simply said so, upon their pleas for help. As for me, I've opened my dream German language school, which is thriving. My students are enthusiastic, filled with hope for their future in Germany. Today, we'll learn about greetings. I stand at the podium with a smile, loving this confident version of myself, filled with hope for the future.
The older lady is fired. Clean everything up and leave.
Carol, the president's daughter who became the head of the design department, said, I've been with this company for 40 years and have designed 90% of our flagship products, but she seems unaware of that. So, I decided to take action. I'll clean everything up nicely before leaving, I said, and then wiped all my PC data and resigned. As a result, Carol faced an unexpected turn of events. I'm Victoria Simmons, 62 years old. I work in the design department of a stationery manufacturer. I've been here since I was a fresh graduate, for 40 years, and I'm still active even after retirement age. I strive not to be outdone by the younger ones. I lost my husband 10 years ago, and my daughter lives alone. It's hard to say this about myself, but I've designed 90% of the company's flagship products. Therefore, I believe I hold significant value to the company. Stationery is wonderful. It's about dreams. Designing for writing, drawing, painting, erasing, measuring, making each task functional and enjoyable. These designs cater to everyone, from school children to professionals. How long I can continue, no one knows. But since I love my job, I joke with the younger employees that I'll keep going until I can no longer stand. One morning, the President Kennedy, who I joined the company with, showed up at a meeting. It had been a while since he attended. He brought a woman with him. Good morning, everyone. It's been half a year since I last saw all of you, hasn't it? Victoria, you're looking well. Kennedy and I joined the company in the same year. He used to be in sales, and we often talked at internal product presentations. Unlike the typical arrogant son of a president, he's sincere and humble. It's been 10 years since he took over from the previous president. Today, I've brought the replacement for the department head who recently left. Kennedy encouraged the woman beside him to greet everyone. She stepped forward and greeted. Hello, I'm Carol Kennedy. I look forward to dedicating myself to the future growth of our company. Please, let's work well together. Everyone in the department was surprised. No one had expected the president's daughter to be appointed as the head of the department. As you all may know, our company is planning to expand overseas starting this year. We sent Carol to study abroad for a long time for this reason. She will help us create designs that are globally competitive. Let's all unite in this effort. After saying so, Kennedy left in good spirits. Wilson, one of the colleagues, approached me.
Victoria, what do you think about her? Carol, I mean. I've known Carol since she was a child. We've never spoken, but the president used to bring her to company recreation events. Haven't seen her in a long time, but she's grown into a fine young lady. I think the president wants to make use of her international experience. But whether she understands the design industry is another question. So, we'll see how she does, huh?
I could sense a hint of disdain for Carol in Wilson's expression.
Wilson, we just need to focus on our responsibilities.
Yes, you're right. I'm sorry. However, as it turned out later, Wilson's intuition was spot on. A month had passed since Carol took charge. We continued as usual, brainstorming new ideas for stationery and designing in front of our computers.
Everyone, I have something to say. Is that okay?
Carol said so and walked to the center of the room. She then started speaking.
We will start developing products for the international market next month, starting with UK. If things go well, we will establish a base in London and then expand to hub offices in various locations.
Wilson's eyes widened.
So, as a start, we will develop new products. The ideas and designs will be decided through an internal competition.
The strategy was to sell some of our existing products while simultaneously developing new ones. The release of the new products, both domestically and internationally. It was set for 6 months later. I had a question. Carol, is there a specific concept for the product development? Her face, which had been amiable until then, hardened.
The fact that I didn't mention a concept means it's the same as before. Simmons, you're our most veteran employee, right? I didn't expect such a basic question from someone like you.
I was taken aback by her unexpected response.
If I had to say, I don't want anything outdated.
With a composed face, Carol finished speaking and returned to her desk. The internal competition was held weekly. I thought, wouldn't it be wonderful if, like Hollywood movies, American origin stationery could become popular worldwide? I kept searching for new product ideas. What's different from my younger days is that the number of ideas that come to mind decreases with age. However, the quality of each idea has certainly improved. So, I wasn't worried even if I didn't come up with ideas every week. But Carol seemed not to tolerate that.
In this past month, everyone has worked hard. We've had over 200 ideas, with Wilson contributing 20%. It's not just about quantity, especially since we don't know what the market expects. We need as many ideas as possible.
She was clearly speaking with me in mind. Unfazed, I gave Wilson, who was modestly giving a thumbs up, a secret wink.
Well, it can't be helped if nothing comes up. But, as professionals, is it acceptable? Only 5 ideas in a month might indicate you've run out of ideas after being in the business for so long. I don't understand that world, but it doesn't seem like you're trying.
She looked straight at me, without averting her eyes even once. After the meeting, Wilson came to me.
Thanks to you, Victoria. Your way of expanding associations was amazing. Ideas just keep coming. But Carol is too blatant. It's really annoying. It's okay. It's true that not many ideas are coming out.
But, has she seen your ideas? Just talking numbers here. 1 of yours equals 10 of ours. Does she understand that?
That's all right. Maybe the British won't like my ideas. The final judgment is by the users.
Another month passed. We narrowed down our ideas and designed about 50 specific products from them. None of my ideas were selected, but about 5 of my designs were nominated. Carol seemed displeased by that.
Today, a buyer from UK, Mr. Lee, will visit us. He's agreed to take over our agency there. We hope to decide today, but at least we want to narrow it down to about 5. Especially the younger ones, look forward to it.
In the afternoon, Lee arrived and headed to the conference room with Carol. They returned after about 3 hours.
Congratulations, Wilson. I think it will be one of your 3 designs.
Carol spoke to Wilson with a big smile. He looked surprised. Later, I heard that everyone thought one of my designs would be chosen. Thank you. But, are you sure? Shouldn't it be Victoria's?
That's fine. Mr. Lee liked it, and so did I.
Oh, yes. Thank you very much.
Indeed, we can't match the sensibilities of the younger generation. Simmons, it's unfortunate, but that's how it is.
Carol said that with a spiteful look. That might be true. I have no hard feelings about Wilson being chosen. In fact, I'm genuinely happy for him. It's wonderful when my colleague makes their mark in the world. I spoke from the heart. Then, Carol's face flushed with anger.
That's so irritating. What's with this saintly act of yours? You can only come up with 4 or 5 ideas a month and still act so high and mighty. Do you think everyone respects you just because you've been here the longest?
Her words were unexpected. I never thought she saw me that way, but at the same time, my anger was ignited.
Excuse me, but how much do you actually know about design? Do you remember the process of selecting everyone's ideas and designs? None of the works you favored are left in the final selection. You lack a professional's eye. You don't understand our struggle.
At that point, she lost her composure.
Oh dear. To think you'd say such things to me. I'm a manager, you know?
She approached me. Her eyes bloodshot.
You're done here as of today. The older lady is fired. Clean everything up and leave.
I was surprised by her sudden change, but I felt no resistance to her command to leave. Though I thought her remark about being an older lady was uncalled for.
I understand. I'll clean everything up nicely before leaving. But I'm worried about what happens next. What are you talking about? Worrying about what happens after you leave? Don't pretend to care. The department will rejuvenate, and the young energy will keep coming. It's all good.
She laughed triumphantly, looking as if her anger had subsided.
I'm relieved to hear that. I'll start right away.
I said emotionlessly and began clearing my belongings. There was nothing particularly important to keep or hand over, so I discarded almost everything. I saved my designs on my memory stick, wiped the PC data, yes, erased everything. I also cleared the shared memory on the internet.
Hey, Simmons, don't forget to submit your resignation. It's the rule.
Of course. After saying that, I immediately wrote my resignation letter and handed it to her. She remarked,
"Wow, that was quick,"
and took it with a refreshing smile. I tried to appear relieved, but I couldn't tell how she perceived it. Then, until the end of the day, I went around bidding farewell to my colleagues. That night, they hastily organized a farewell party for me. Surprisingly, it turned into a chorus of criticism and complaints about Carol. I became increasingly worried about the future of the design department. The next morning, I woke up to bright sunlight. It seemed I had gotten drunk last night, for the first time in many years, so much so that I couldn't remember when last I had felt this way. I had forgotten to close the curtains on the east-facing window and slept through. Suffering from a rare hangover, I groaned while heading to the kitchen. I grabbed a bottle of water from the fridge and gulped it down. Then, I sat on the living room sofa, feeling blank. My mind was empty, but that was a sensation I hadn't felt since my student days, which strangely made me a bit happy. However, old habits die hard. Despite not feeling hungry, I thought I should make breakfast.
Take it easy, you have all the time now.
I said to myself and chuckled. Then I thought of calling my daughter and visiting her.
Right, I should do what I've always wanted to do.
I muttered. Just then, my mobile phone rang. It was Kennedy. Good morning, Mr. Kennedy. What's the matter? Calling so early.
It's not about what's the matter, Victoria. I tried calling you last night too. Never mind that. Could you come to the office, please?
But I resigned as of yesterday.
Just come, please. This is an order. I'll be in my office.
All right. An order, that's not something one says to someone who has resigned. Yet, I thought, if he's insisting so much, it must be something urgent. I soothed my aching head with hot coffee, gulping it down as it cooled. Then, I called a taxi and headed to the office. Excuse me. I knocked and entered the president's office.
Good morning. Sorry for calling you in so early.
Kennedy wanted to hear about what happened yesterday. I explained everything, careful not to exaggerate my words or reactions.
I see. I am very sorry about that.
He expressed his deep apology.
The mess my foolish daughter made is my responsibility as her father. It seems I made mistakes in raising her. Victoria, would you consider withdrawing your resignation? We started here together, after all. Please.
I had harbored no negative feelings towards him, only gratitude for employing me for a long time. But his words caught me off guard. President Kennedy, it's not fair using our shared past like that.
So, will you?
All right. I'm counting on you.
Morning.
Saying that, he entered the design department office. I was told to wait in the hallway until called. The door was left open, so I could hear the conversation inside.
Dad, what are you doing here? Did we have a plan? Do not call me Dad here.
His uncharacteristically stern tone seemed to surprise Carol.
I have a question for you, Carol. What is it?
The two began to speak in a formal tone.
Why did Victoria resign?
Oh, as per her resignation letter. Personal reasons.
Don't lie.
Kennedy glared at Carol as he spoke in a low voice.
It's not a lie. She left because of her age.
The surrounding staff were all left speechless.
Don't lie. I've heard everything about what happened.
In that instant, Carol glanced sharply at the employees.
Someone spilled the beans.
And muttered under her breath. Suddenly, Kennedy raised his voice.
Don't make a fool of me.
Carol stood up, startled, her eyes wide open.
Victoria.
I was called and immediately entered the room. Carol's eyes were so wide open, it seemed they might fall out.
Carol, I heard it from Victoria. You don't seem to understand what you did.
She seemed to have calmed down a bit. Even so, she took a deep breath before proceeding. How do I know if her story is true?
Fool!
Carol collapsed to the floor.
Who do you think you are? Don't underestimate the real world. Listen, you don't understand Victoria's value to our company at all.
The conversation had turned into one between parent and child.
It's not just about how long she has worked,
Carol said defiantly. Kennedy was completely exasperated.
How dare you? Victoria has been faithfully serving for 40 years, designing 90% of our flagship products. She's the backbone of our company. Without her, the design department would fall apart. She's irreplaceable. You, on the other hand, are easily replaceable. Understand?
Carol was at a loss for words, but she bit her lip and glared at Kennedy.
Then you should have told me that. How am I supposed to know if no one tells me?
She spoke like a petulant child, and laughter could be heard from the staff. Carol glared at them. Seeing that, Kennedy turned towards the staff.
Everyone, I am truly sorry. This incident is my responsibility as her father. That's right, I never wanted to be in this department in the first place. Dad is to blame.
I thought my blood vessels might burst.
You are unbelievably hopeless.
Kennedy and Carol both looked surprised, caught off guard. I had made up my mind. Carol, let me be clear. You are not cut out for a managerial role. In fact, you have a fatal flaw as a professional. Your conversation with President Kennedy just now proves it. You may have forgotten, but you called me an older lady. And as I've said before, your judgment in design is non-existent. It's hopeless. Carol was still in shock. I've changed my mind and decided to come back to work, for the sake of the president and the design department. I've chosen to cherish my passion. I then said to Kennedy, I'm sorry for my outburst. He shook his head and replied,
Not at all. Thank you.
Carol was biting her lip in frustration again, this time looking down. Then, a phone call came. It was for Carol, but after a moment of hesitation, Kennedy answered it. The caller was Lee. Kennedy listened, nodding and showing surprise at times, and eventually said,
That's fine. I apologize for the inconvenience. We look forward to continued cooperation.
He hung up. It was about the selection of the design. Lee said that although my design was his top choice, he reluctantly went with Wilson's due to Carol's strong insistence and persuasion. He found it hard to discard my design and thus reached out. It seemed that Carol had come to terms with the situation. She finally seemed to surrender. She dropped like a wilting sunflower. After Lee's call, Kennedy laid out the conditions to Carol in front of the staff.
You will decide your own future. If you want to work in our company, start from the new employee training. Otherwise, you'll be assigned to one of our client companies.
Greatly humbled, Carol replied in a faint voice, "Yes." After the two left, all the staff gathered around me, expressing their joy. Although it was the unfortunate outcome for Wilson, "See, I told you. This is for the best," he said with a smile. Indeed, it seemed like things turned out just as he and everyone else had initially felt about Carol. That experience reminded me of how important intuition is for a designer. Subsequently, our market expansion into the UK went well. This time, we targeted teenagers. We found that the sensibilities of American and British teenagers are quite similar. While I don't think it applies to all age groups, it was a revelation. Considering the global use of social media, it's clear that sharing of sensibilities is happening faster than imagined. So, I believe that designs aimed at American consumers could also sell well. At my age, I never thought I'd be doing work with such a worldwide impact. I'm more motivated than ever. Visiting my daughter will have to wait. I guess it'll be another video call tonight.
Hey, mister. I'm the daughter of this company's owner, alright? My dad's the boss. Don't lump me with these lowly, poor employees.
Surprised by both her vulgarity and her true identity, my dad paused with a shocked expression, then cleared his throat softly. Meanwhile, Carol wore a smug look, as if she had just made a grand statement. Remembering that Dad originally came to our company for business, I realized we couldn't afford to cause any more trouble. So I tried to apologize to Carol. Just then, Dad spoke in a low voice.
So, the lower ranks are the poor employees, huh? Maybe it's time to revise the salary structure.
He muttered this almost to himself.
What? Are you mocking me? Fine. Mister, what's your name? Which subcontractor do you work for? I'll tell Dad about you. It might just be your fault if the company goes under.
Carol retorted. Dad, looking slightly puzzled, thought for a moment before breaking into a smile. Then, let's go say hello to the boss. Lenore and the others, come along. Everyone except Dad looked shocked, but he walked ahead. Not wanting to be left behind, we hurried after him. My name is Lenore. I'm a hardworking 28-year-old. The company I work for is quite large, and I work tirelessly every day. My dad, concerned about me, contacts me once a week, but I always reply with, "Don't worry," trying to reassure him, almost forcibly. His concern is probably because he wants to recruit me to his company. 7 years ago, when I was still a college student, I was busy with job hunting every day to secure a job offer. Dad, who runs his own company, once invited me to join his company, saying, "Why bother with job hunting? You can just come work for my company." It's not that I didn't want to go to his company, but I didn't want to rely on such connections. I wanted to succeed on my own merit. And I wanted to work alongside him, as an equal, once I was fully competent at my job. I explained this and persuaded him. Reluctantly, he agreed, and I joined my current company. It's been 6 years since I started working here. Now, I have more responsibilities, and I even have subordinates. And it's our busy season. It's not uncommon for our department heads to be absent from the office for an entire day during this time, and sometimes I can't even sit at my desk for more than 30 minutes. We're that busy. I don't have the luxury of constantly worrying about Dad's feelings. Today, I've been bustling around the office since morning. Even amidst the rush, a shrill voice caught my ear as I passed by a meeting room, prompting me to stop. The door was slightly ajar, and peering inside, I saw a woman with a tray bowing her head before another woman who sat arrogantly, berating her.
How many times do I have to tell you? I don't like coffee, I want Coke.
It seemed the employee had brought the wrong beverage. The angry woman looked younger than me, but whose guest was she? A frequent complainer, perhaps? It's disgraceful to fuss over complimentary beverages. I wondered what her parents would think. Just as I was about to open the door and intervene. Ah, there she goes again. I heard a voice behind me. Turning around, I saw my colleague Sissy peeking into the room.
You scared me. Don't just start talking out of nowhere.
I chided her in a whisper, careful not to be overheard.
Sorry. But it's unexpected to see you peeking, Lenore,
she said with a mischievous grin. Sissy is only a year younger than me, even though she's my subordinate. We get along well and often go out for drinks. Professionally, she's my subordinate, but in our private lives, we're like friends.
I wasn't peeking. By the way, Sissy, do you know who that woman is?
I asked.
Oh, she's quite notorious around here,
Sissy replied with a slight smirk.
That's Carol, the boss's only daughter.
His daughter? But why is she here? I inquired, puzzled. She occasionally comes to play around like this, throwing her weight around with the staff. No one dares to contradict her because she's the boss's daughter. As Sissy explained, Carol continued to berate the employee.
Go buy me a Coke. What's your name? I'll tell Dad,
she shouted. I want to help that employee, my colleague, but I hesitated. Let's get back to work for now, Lenore, Sissy suggested. Poor thing, we don't keep Coke for guests. Sissy gently closed the meeting room door, holding the handle that I was gripping. She enjoys bossing the staff around like this. She never actually reports anyone. Last week, it was ginger ale. You have work to do, Lenore. She's not worth your time. Her words reminded me of the tasks I had to complete. Sissy, are you free now? Want to come to the warehouse with me?
Sure. I was actually looking for you. I have some business there too.
We left the meeting room, the shouts still echoing, with heavy hearts. Why does Carol come here to play? She should be having fun with friends. She looks college-aged. I pondered aloud while checking inventory in the warehouse. Apparently, she's joining the company next year. She's been visiting frequently for that. You'd think she'd rather be with friends, but she doesn't seem to have many, Sissy commented. True. I mused, feeling uneasy about Carol. Shouldn't she value the employees who support her family's business? Especially since they'll be her coworkers and supervisors next year? It's not right to treat them as mere playthings. Does she not realize she's embarrassing her parents? As I pondered these things, the pressure of my pen on the inventory notes inadvertently grew stronger. Noticing this, Sissy glanced at my notes. I get why you're angry, Lenore. She's exactly the type of person you dislike the most, she said with a wry smile. That's true, but what really irks me is the boss and the executives who say nothing. They should reprimand her for such behavior. Apparently, she's an overindulged child, born late in her father's life, Sissy explained with a gentle smile, easing me back into work mode. Thanks to her, I managed to finish the warehouse work surprisingly quickly. Exhausted from the day, I was heading home when my mobile phone rang. It was a message from Dad. Lenore, I'm coming to your company tomorrow for a business deal. If you're free, I'd like to see you. I was surprised. Dad was visiting my office? The company I work for is in the same industry as his company, and I knew they were connected, but it was the first time he had shown his face at my company in the 6 years I've been working there. I hoped to see him, but it really depended on timing, so I just replied, "If I'm free, I'll come and see you. Let me know." And then closed the message. The next day, my office was busy, but things started to calm down by lunchtime. While eating, I received a message from Dad. "I'll be at your company soon." I checked the time and decided to wait for him outside. As I got up, Sissy, sitting next to me, asked,
"Where are you rushing off to, Lenore? It's still lunch break."
"Oh, my dad is visiting the office today. I thought I'd go say hi since it's been a while."
What? Can I come too, just to greet him?
She asked excitedly. Sure, let's go together, I agreed. Sissy followed me, checking her reflection in the window and fixing her hair. I was pleased to have such an eager subordinate. While Sissy and I waited for my dad at the entrance.
Is that him?
She suddenly pointed to a taxi. I shook my head. Steve would have driven his own car rather than take a taxi. As we looked in the opposite direction, a shrill voice called out.
Nice of you to meet me here.
I pretended not to hear, but Sissy made a disgusted face as if to say this is the worst.
Hey, you over there, where are you looking? I'm right here.
I turned around, frustrated. And there was Carol. She was dressed inappropriately for the office, in a flouncy miniskirt and casual t-shirt, clacking her heels as she walked towards us.
Excuse me, but you're mistaken. We're waiting for someone else here, I said, looking away again.
In an ear-piercing tone, Carol shouted.
What's with that attitude? Aren't you an employee here? Apologize right now.
Sissy looked at me with a panicked expression. Yes, I'm an employee.
But why should I apologize?
I responded calmly.
What?
Carol seemed even more incensed by this.
You, a lowly employee, think you can talk to me like that? Really, old lady?
Well, a company needs its lowly employees, doesn't it? And for your information, I'm only 28, not an old lady. Carol burst into laughter at my reply.
28? You look much older. Is it hard being poor? I pity you,
she said, pointing at me mockingly. I was furious, but I couldn't do much since she was the boss's daughter. I had to stand there, seething in silence, as she laughed. Then,
Hey, Lenore! Long time no see!
I heard a voice from afar. Approaching us was Dad, a slightly overweight, ordinary-looking man in a suit, waving his hand.
Who's that weird guy? Hilarious,
Carol said, looking at him and laughing. That was the last straw for me.
Excuse me, that's rude.
I raised my voice.
What? Who are you yelling at?
Carol yelled back. What's going on? Are you all friends? Unaware of the situation, Dad smiled at me kindly.
What? As if I would be friends with these people.
Carol snapped at him, switching her target from me to him. Dad's expression changed immediately.
How rude to say these people when you are colleagues who work together.
He was right, but Carol wasn't convinced.
Listen, old man. I'm the daughter of this company's owner. My dad is the boss. Don't lump me with these lowly, poor employees.
Dad looked shocked by Carol's rudeness and her identity, then cleared his throat softly. Meanwhile, Carol looked smug, as if she had just triumphed. Remembering that Dad originally came to our company for business, I realized we couldn't afford to cause any more trouble. So I tried to apologize to Carol. But at that moment, Dad spoke in a low voice.
So, the lower ranks are the poor employees, huh? Maybe it's time to revise the salary structure.
He muttered this to himself.
What? Are you mocking me? Fine. Mister, what's your name? Which subcontracting company are you from? I'll tell my dad about you. You might just ruin the company.
Carol spat out. Dad, looking puzzled, thought for a moment before smiling. Well then, let's go greet the boss. Lenore and the others, come along. The only one unfazed by the situation was Dad, who had already started walking ahead. Not wanting to be left behind, we quickly followed him. We reached the boss's office, and Dad entered first. Sissy and I followed, tense. Carol, pushing past us, rushed to her father.
Dad! This man,
She began to tattle immediately. Before Carol could finish, her father spoke loudly.
This man? Who are you talking to?
I'm sorry, Steve.
My daughter lacks manners.
He shot Carol a sharp look to silence her, then turned to us with a smile.
Ah, it's your daughter with you today?
Did you know about me? I asked, surprised. Dad sat down on a sofa.
Wait, Dad.
Carol protested. Dad gave me a kind look, then turned his sharp gaze to the boss. Earlier, your daughter called my daughter and her colleague lowly, poor employees. What's this about? The boss's face tightened.
Well, they deserved it. They were rude to me, just low-end employees.
Carol continued in her shrill voice.
What?
The boss turned pale and shouted angrily at Carol.
What are you saying? This lady is the daughter of a valued client, and this man is her father and the current boss. Eh?
Carol's face turned pale, realizing the gravity of her actions. To think such a large company still treats its employees as poor. You've become quite the boss, haven't you? If your employees are poor, shouldn't the company be ashamed? The boss was sweating profusely. I can't leave my daughter in such a place. She'll resign today. When the boss heard that, he immediately apologized to my dad and said,
I'm terribly sorry. I've heard your daughter is very skilled. Please, not resignation. And you apologize to him.
Wait, Dad. What's going on?
I whispered to him.
I had let the boss know that you were employed here, to look out for you. As I knew that you don't like the preferential treatment, I told him just to keep an eye out.
Ignoring the boss and his daughter, Steve explained kindly. But I never thought this company would treat its employees like slaves. Lenore, you can quit now. You've done well here for 6 years.
Come work for me.
That's sudden. I can't just leave in the middle of the busy season. I protested. Dad seemed a bit exasperated by my response, but he eventually agreed. All right, if you insist. After this busy season, come work for my company. And you, it must be uncomfortable staying here after this. What do you say? The industry is the same. He kindly offered this to Sissy.
Yes, absolutely.
Sissy replied immediately.
Wait, Sissy. I haven't decided yet.
I protested. Sissy looked at me quizzically. Why not? Your dad's company is one of the elite in the country, and you're his daughter. Why wouldn't you go? Dad nodded in agreement with Sissy's words. I don't want to join his company just because of connections. I know Dad's company is big, but I didn't want to take the easy way. I explained. Sissy smiled happily. That's so like you, Lenore. And she continued.
Lenore's father, I'm Sissy. I really appreciate that I can work with her. She is an outstanding boss.
As she praised me, Dad smiled and sobbed along. I felt embarrassed and urged Dad to continue. Dad, the boss is still. Ah, right, forgot about that. Sorry, Sissy, we'll talk later.
Yes.
Sissy cheerfully replied.
Now, boss, no need to apologize anymore. Let's end our business dealings here.
As my dad finally addressed to him, he was surprised and looked up at Dad.
That would be a great loss for us. I'm truly sorry. No, it's fine. This isn't because of the disrespectful behavior towards them. Then why?
He asked.
Please guide me. I'll improve anything. I'll definitely make improvements.
The company would suffer a huge blow if they lost their dealings with Dad. That's why the boss kept apologizing repeatedly. Improvement is impossible. Once trust is lost, it can't be regained. You say employees are your priority, yet your daughter treats them like slaves. Did you think I wouldn't hear about it?
I'm not sure.
Even from the side, I can see Carol turned pale. I could demote you from the boss, but should I? Dad asked.
Please, forgive me.
The boss pleaded.
Hey, Dad. Just because you're a valued client, you can't really do that, can you?
I asked.
I can.
Dad replied with a smile, indicating he really had the power. I don't inquire deeply into the relationship between the boss and Dad, but Dad might be more powerful in this industry than I thought. With this realization, the both attitudes of my dad and the boss make sense.
I won't go that far since I'm not a child, but I will end our contract. Thank you for your business.
With that, he stood up, straightening his suit.
Please, I'm begging you. Just for this term, please reconsider. How about a promotion for your daughter? No, a raise. She can even become an executive right now. Dad! But you said I would start from manager because of how it looks to others. An immediate promotion to executive is impossible.
At that moment, my dad's look at the two changed to one of disdain. And the boss's pleading eyes were fixed squarely on Carol. Despite this, Carol still seemed dissatisfied with the difference between what her father had said about my position and her own treatment. I almost felt sorry for the boss with such an oblivious daughter. But I had reached my limit and couldn't hold back anymore.
You plan to put a woman who called us lowly, poor employees and was rude to Dad in a position of authority?
I blurted out.
Well, my daughter doesn't understand because she hasn't experienced the real world yet. She'll learn to respect others through the hardships of society.
Respecting others has nothing to do with social experience. I interjected, louder than I intended. Carol looked up, startled, and I addressed her.
A company cannot function without its employees. Even someone who has never been an executive, like me, understands this. But you don't. Why? How would I know that?
Carol seemed genuinely clueless.
Do you think being a daughter of privilege puts you above others? Of course. I'm from a different upbringing. It's not my decision, it's God's.
To Carol's nonsensical reply, I forced a smile.
Then, as the daughter of this company's boss, I'm higher than you, right? You'll listen to me?
My smile was apparently so frightening that Sissy later told me it scared Carol, whose composure vanished.
Fine, what do you want? This company is not your playground. If you want to play, go find your college friends.
Carol hung her head in shame, her face flushed. Sissy quietly applauded me.
Well said. That's my daughter.
Dad laughed heartily. After that, Sissy and I spent a hectic month at work. But the second half of the busy season was unexpectedly calm. Each time our supervisors and colleagues looked puzzled, Sissy and I exchanged knowing smiles. A month later, Sissy and I resigned and joined my dad's company. Our previous company began to decline drastically. Rumors quickly spread that the abrupt termination of the contract with a major firm was to blame, prompting other companies to reconsider their dealings. Sales plummeted by 40%, most employees started job hunting, and the company's decline accelerated. The general meeting decided the crisis was due to the boss's fault, and he was ousted. His brother is now trying to rebuild the company. According to Dad, this brother is well respected. The company might be reborn into something better. On the condition that the former boss's family no longer be involved, Dad began moves to restart dealings with them. I also heard from Dad that the former boss's family began to lose their possessions, eventually selling their house. I don't know where they went, but I doubt a family accustomed to such wealth could adapt to normal life. In fact, Carol reportedly got a job at a grocery store, acted arrogantly to customers, got into an argument, and was fired within hours, becoming somewhat of a legend. In my personal life, I managed to convince Dad to let me start as a regular employee instead of directly becoming an executive. However, I'm aware that I'll eventually take over the company. So, I balance my everyday tasks with assisting the executive team. Constantly amazed by their innovative ideas that never occur to me, sometimes feeling overwhelmed. But every time I feel like my head is about to explode, Sissy is there by my side, saying,
Lenore, let's finish this task first. Then we can decide the priority for the next ones.
Her support keeps me grounded. Sometimes the pressure of being the boss's daughter feels crushing, but with Sissy around, I can stay confident and cope. Interestingly, Dad also likes Sissy, and sometimes the three of us go out for drinks. Every time Dad gets tipsy and tells this joke.
Lenore will be the next president, and Sissy the next executive officer. Don't even think about getting married and retiring, you too.
He often tells this story laughingly. However, what Dad doesn't know is that I'm secretly in a relationship. My desire to get married is still a secret from Dad.
I'm the eldest son. You knew living with my mother would be a possibility when we got married, didn't you? You never mentioned that when we first got married. My husband, having moved in with my mother-in-law earlier than his sister, sold his family home. He has left the sole responsibility of taking care of my mother-in-law to me, a stay-at-home wife. He must have planned this for a long time. My name is Laura. I'm a 46-year-old housewife. My husband, Robert, is 44 years old. He works for a decent company, but he's a subsection manager who boasts about his Ivy League education. We have 2 sons. We are a family of 4, but following our eldest, our youngest son also graduated from college this summer and moved out. At such a moment, my husband suddenly started to act on his own. "We're going to take in my mom soon," he declared. I'm hearing this for the first time. I was shocked, as this was news to me. My mother-in-law lost her husband, my father-in-law, last year. Considering they were a couple who always did everything together, I had been worried about how shocked my mother-in-law must have been, but living together suddenly, anyone would be surprised. "You have plenty of time," he implied, since I am, after all, a stay-at-home wife. He instructed me to visit my mother-in-law every day and talk to her. I argued that if I went every day, it might exhaust my mother-in-law, but my husband's aim was to make me and my mother-in-law get along through frequent visits. For him, bringing up living together wasn't easy, even to his own mother. So he used me, thinking that if us 2 women got along well, it would be easier for him to implement his plan. The house where my mother-in-law lives now is a stylish, standalone house built by my late father-in-law in a popular area, not in downtown but somewhere akin to a suburb in Chicago. If put up for sale, there would definitely be many buyers willing to buy it for a great price. Right. My husband got his eyes on this house. I sense that by living with my mother-in-law, he wants to gain the right to do whatever he pleases with his parents' house. A few days later, my husband came home looking irritated. Apparently, his sister contacted him. "You have been visiting my mom, haven't you?" he said while roughly throwing his coat at me. "Yes, about once every 3 or 4 days," I replied, hanging his carelessly thrown coat on a hanger. "My sister went to visit Mom today after a long time, and she said that from the kitchen to the bathroom, the entire house was a mess. You've been cleaning up over there, haven't you?" I was ticked off by his implication that I might be leisurely snacking and chilling out when visiting my mother-in-law's house. Of course I've been helping with the chores and shopping. I've even organized the fridge before leaving. My husband laughed scornfully and said, "Well, I guess this is the most I can expect from a housewife," and glanced around the living room. It hasn't been long since our youngest son just moved out, so he may be right that the room isn't totally clean. But it's not messy to the point that makes it hard to go about our usual days. My husband Robert has a nasty habit of nagging me about being a full-time housewife whenever he's in a bad mood. He always picks on the smallest things. If I stay silent, he assumes he's won the argument and cheerfully believes he's triumphed, which of course improves his mood. I often wonder if belittling his wife is really that satisfying for him. When he comes home from work tired, he'd demand, "Get my dinner out on the table already. Seriously, can't you do anything without me telling you?" That was Robert, always trying to assert his dominance. Then one day, I got a call from my sister-in-law. It seemed she had had a talk with Robert and she told me. Robert insists that if he moves in with Mom, he should be able to sell the house and keep all the money to himself. Laura, are you planning to move in? If I had any hesitations about living with our mother-in-law, she offered to take her in instead. I told her, "We just started discussing the possibility recently," to which she responded as if she had her own schemes in mind. "So it's not confirmed yet then?" and hung up. When I told Robert about this conversation, he became furious, barking, "Why did you reveal our plans without asking me?" I replied, saying, "This is about discussing our mother's future, isn't it? You make it sound like a property dispute." He gave me a scornful look and sneered. I really hate dealing with idiots who can't think straight. This is what our relationship dynamic really is like for the most part. He'd belittle me for being a housewife and a high school graduate, always trying to make me submit to him. I was drawn to his confidence and reliability when we got married, but the things I loved about him have morphed into the things I loathe about him. What's worse, he'd occasionally boast about marrying an older woman, for me being 2 years older than him. He mocked me for not having a college degree and pushed me into being a housewife, claiming no one would want to hire a high school graduate. Ever since our children moved out, I've been feeling more and more stressed about my interactions with Robert. To be honest, I've been feeling as though I've reached my limit with this marriage. Robert, oblivious to my feelings, likely wants to move in with his mother as soon as possible, probably aiming to pocket all the money from selling her house. He doesn't seem to consider how his parents might feel about their home being sold or the memories they've built there. In the midst of these conflicting interests among family members, I encountered a shocking reality. It began with a call from my mother-in-law who had sprained her ankle. She said her room was in a mess and needed help cleaning it up. Although several days had passed since my sister-in-law had last visited, I figured that's what she was talking about the other day, so I responded lightly, "Sure, I'll come over." It didn't seem like she had informed Robert, but she assured me I didn't need to let him know either. So I visited her with a light heart. The following day, I rang my mother-in-law's doorbell. I heard her shout, "It's open," from the yard. I turned the knob and stepped into the entrance. An unpleasant odor was already noticeable. I saw dust accumulated in the corner of the corridor, with towels and discarded socks scattered around. The stench grew stronger as I entered the living room, where I found a stack of cushions piled on the sofa. My mother-in-law? Did she go somewhere? I murmured. Then I heard, "I'm here," so I followed where the voice was coming from. There, I found my mother-in-law buried in a stack of cushions on the couch, which seemed to be adjusted for comfort. The cushions were piled up so high that I hadn't noticed she was there. Excuse me, Mom? Are you all right?" I called out as I approached her. The peculiar smell grew stronger. Trying not to gag from the smell, I searched for its source. "I'm okay. I just piled up the cushions because it's comfortable." She laughed heartily. I realized the source of the smell was my mother-in-law herself. With all my might, I tried not to pinch my nose and asked her, "How's your leg?" "Were you unable to bathe because it was inconvenient?" She replied, Yes, about that. I healed quickly, but after a few days of not bathing due to the pain, I couldn't be bothered to take a shower." "Do I smell?" I refrained from answering and said, "I will clean up," and proceeded to open all the windows in the house. My mother-in-law certainly needed a thorough bath. Thinking this, I headed to the bathroom. The bathtub had some water filled and was left as is with the lid half submerged. Soap scraps and towels were all muddy in the wash basin, and the mirror was foggy and dirty. I can't remember the last time I was here, but I wonder if my sister-in-law didn't visit in the meantime. I was puzzled how this could be neglected for so long, but for now, I cleaned the bathroom, filled up the tub with fresh water, added lemon bath salts for fragrance, and told my mother-in-law, "I've just cleaned the bathroom and prepared a bath for you. Please, take a bath first. Meanwhile, I'll air these out," I said, pointing at the cushions my mother-in-law was buried in. The kitchen was in an appalling state, but the rest of the rooms were not that bad, with only a few layers of accumulated dust. The kitchen was filthy. It looked as though roaches might be lurking around, but I braced myself and cleaned it until it was spotless. "That was refreshing," my mother-in-law, returning, said as she came back to the living room. Her cheeks, flushed like a boiled lobster, glowed from having days of built-up dead skin washed off. Because I had been cleaning like crazy, the living room and kitchen were mostly tidied up. My mother-in-law was very pleased with the result. Finally, in the cleaned living room, I asked my mother-in-law, "You were always so tidy and organized, Mom. What happened all of a sudden?" Ever since I got married, my mother-in-law was always neat and her house was well maintained, but this time it was a surprise to see her place in such a state, to the point that she needed to call for help. So I straight up asked her. She said, "Did you notice that I just used my injured foot as an excuse? I've been living with my husband for decades, doing my best as a wife and mother, but last year after my husband passed away, I felt a sudden sense of freedom. Her children were already independent and married. Her husband was no more here with her. She wanted to slack off and do nothing for once," she said. "I also know that the kids want to sell this house, and it could escalate into a nasty fight over it. But I have an idea," my mother-in-law said, staring intensely as she shared her thoughts. My mother-in-law, out of her usual character, gave me a strong gaze as she opened up to me. As I listened to her, I felt like I had been idling away, lost in thought, in an effort to find answers. Leaving her house, I began to think about my own future as well. So far, my relationship with my mother-in-law had only been as distant as a typical daughter-in-law and mother-in-law relationship. But the fact that it was not her biological daughter or son who she revealed her lowest self, I felt was indicative of my mother-in-law's feelings. Days passed without sharing this incident with anyone. After a while, my husband, Robert, came home from work and blurted out, "We're going to invite my mom to live with us." As I was watching TV, I asked him to repeat himself. "We're inviting my mom to move in with us." "And what does your mom think?" I asked. "There's no need to ask her," he said. He seemed to think that any parent would be happy if their child offered them to move in with them. "You should check with your mom first instead of just making decisions on your own," I suggested. But in response, he smirked, turning around. What a high and mighty thing to say for a stay-at-home wife. "Don't forget, if you can't obey what I say, divorce is always on the table." Seeing his face, I felt at my wit's end. He knew that being a housewife and nearly in my 50s, I wouldn't be able to make it on my own if we divorced, which is why he was threatening me with divorce, attempting to stir up my anxiety and manipulate me at his will. But I had an unexpected savior, and unbeknownst to my husband, my life was about to take a dramatic turn. I ignored his provocative comment, finished dinner, and went to bed. My husband, feeling that he had completely cornered me with his divorce threat, was in a good mood. He's probably thinking of inviting his mother as planned, sweet-talk her into selling her house, and pocket the money all to himself. The next morning, I packed my belongings and left the house. When Robert came home to find an empty house, he seemed startled, and my phone kept ringing. I read the incoming messages without responding, just so he wouldn't cause any trouble by reporting to the police or anything. The message Robert sent read, "Are you so against living with my mom? But if we live together, that house will be ours. Don't you see how great that would be?" My suspicion was right. His interest wasn't to stay with his aging mother to support her, but rather to profit off her house. I told this to my mother-in-law. She looked a little sad, and it pained me a bit, but she seemed determined and said she would act according to her feelings. Yes, the place I went after leaving my husband was my mother-in-law's house. I took on a job and was busy using this place as my base. Robert, growing anxious since I wasn't responding, blew up my phone with calls and texts. And after a week, he contacted my family in Nebraska, and I got a call from my mom. "Laura, where are you? Robert claims that you're with us. He even said he's going to come get you even though I told him you're not here." I explained the situation to my mother and informed her that I'm currently staying at my in-laws' house. My mother-in-law then took the phone, offering a long greeting. For some reason, my mother gave me a word of encouragement. "Wishing you the best of luck." Eventually, my mother-in-law said, "It's about time." And that night, she called my husband, Robert. He was surprised to learn from his own mother that I was not at my parents' house, and immediately came over to our place. Leaving the house so abruptly, I had no idea you were at Mom's. What's this about? Robert blurted out the moment he saw me at his mother's house. Before I could even answer, my mother-in-law spoke up. More than that, do you even understand why Laura left home? What was it really about? Taken aback by her sudden question, Robert awkwardly replied, "Well, that was because I said I wanted to invite Mom over. Because she didn't want to live with you, right? Why would I be here if I didn't want to live with my mother-in-law? Ever thought about that? You see, it wasn't the idea of moving in with her that I disliked. What I hated was you for making selfish decisions without taking others' feelings into consideration." I continued. "My mother-in-law has her own thoughts and hopes, you know. Despite this, you decided on living together without even discussing it with her. You didn't even consider the feelings of your parents when they built this house. You just want this house because you want the money, right?" Robert clenched his fists and hardened his body, looking down as he listened to our conversation. My mother-in-law continued after me. "What do you really need? This house? Or Laura? If you don't change, you'll lose both. Why don't you cool down for a while and rethink everything?" Hearing this from his own mother, Robert, who had been quietly listening, suddenly kneeled to the ground in front of us. I was taken aback and asked, "What's this about?" "I apologize to Laura and to you, Mom. Please, I want to live together again and start anew." Raising his head from his bow, Robert continued, "Mom, will you live with us?" As Robert bowed down again, I looked at my mother-in-law and we shared a knowing smirk. After that, I resumed my life with Robert. But this time, I wasn't a stay-at-home wife anymore. My mother-in-law told her friends about how I deep cleaned her room, a whole mess from the time she spent lazing around, just within a couple of hours. When I mentioned this to my friends, many of them said they wanted you to do the same for their homes. I was amazed and delighted to find that I could apply my housekeeping skills from being a stay-at-home wife to start a new job. I also began studying to become a storage advisor. It seemed that Robert had not given up on the idea of living with his mother, selling their house and getting a large amount of money. He seemed to think that it would become a reality now that my mother-in-law and I were getting along, but there was a surprise announcement from my mother-in-law. Surprisingly, she was getting remarried. "So I won't be living with you, and I won't be giving up my house either." Upon hearing the news, my sister-in-law congratulated her, although with mixed feelings. I sent my sincere blessings for my mother-in-law's decision. The one who was surprised by my mother-in-law's words and screamed out in shock was Robert. At the same time, he was frantically contacting various people. Apparently, Robert had taken a boating license without telling me and even purchased a small cruiser, counting on the money from selling his parents' house. Now that his plans had fallen apart, Robert was unable to cancel his order for the cruiser, and he seemed to have to work even harder than before. He ended up having to help me with my house cleaning job. As an employer, I'm drilling household chores to Robert and guiding him to clean and polish a great number of my clients' houses.
Housekeeper, what are you standing around for? Can't you even make coffee? Cindy orders me around like she owns the place. Derek, my husband, laughs along with her. To them, I'm not family. I'm just the housekeeper. I don't need a family like this. I've been in touch with someone else. My name is Irene, a 28-year-old office worker. I met Derek through a friend, and we hit it off, especially when we found out we both work for group companies. We got married last year thinking it was fate.
So, we're going next year, right?
No. As Thanksgiving approaches, Derek keeps bringing it up. He wants to go to his parents' home. Honestly, I really don't want to go. And I have a good reason. His unbearable mother, Cindy. I didn't realize it when we were dating, but Derek is a mama's boy, to put it nicely. We're supposed to be newlyweds enjoying the happiest time of our lives. But every morning, Derek calls Cindy before even saying hello to me. After a cheerful chat, he hangs up and finally greets me. It's creepy. When he gets home, he talks to Cindy on the phone until bedtime. I can't tell who's the wife here. To make matters worse, he's been taking more business trips lately. Naturally, we fight all the time. I get that Cindy is important to you, but isn't this a bit much? Derek yells back,
What's wrong with talking to my family?
After fights like this, he usually hands me a pre-filed divorce application the next day. I take it thinking, here we go again. But by evening, he acts like nothing happened. So when are we getting divorced? I ask.
Well, I talked to Mom and she said we should stick it out for the sake of appearances. You should be grateful to me.
This has become our routine. I wish you could see how ridiculous this all is from my perspective. By the way, there are other reasons I can't stand Cindy. Like the time Derek and I went to his parents' home for a family meeting. She greeted me with, "Oh, you're so cute." But once we sat down, there was no coffee for me. By the way, his dad passed away a long time ago.
"Oh, I must have forgotten because I was so nervous," she said.
Looking back, it was clearly intentional. When Derek stepped away to take a work call, she said, "You really are cute." When I blushed, she said, "You can't even take a joke, how foolish." Then she chuckled, "I can't believe you thought you could marry Derek with that face. You're so thick-skinned." According to Cindy, I'm not good enough for her successful son. For the record, I also work for a reputable company, so it's not like I'm underqualified. If anything, Derek's company is slightly more prestigious. "Well, if Derek wants to get married, you make a perfect housekeeper," she laughed. That's why I've disliked Cindy from the start. Who would willingly go to a home like that? But if I say anything to Derek, he'll just get moody again. Ugh. I can't help but sigh. Last Thanksgiving, Cindy was down with a cold. She insisted Derek come home, and despite my objections, he went back alone, saying he was worried. I spent the holiday with my parents and my loving Uncle Cyrus and his wife. I wanted to talk about Derek, but I didn't want to worry my family, especially my frail mom with a bad heart. Uncle Cyrus sensed something was off and told me to speak up if anything was bothering me. Sure enough, Derek caught the virus from Cindy and even passed it on to me. Both of us were bedridden when the doorbell rang. Dragging my sick body to the door, I found Cindy standing there. I thought I was delirious from the fever, but when she shoved me aside, I realized it was real. She walked up to Derek and then turned to me saying, "Can't you even take proper care of Derek, you useless woman?" I'm sick too, and the man lying there is a grown adult over 30. The reason we're in this mess is because of you, I thought, but I couldn't say it out loud. At least someone who can move is here, I thought, begrudgingly grateful to Sydney. But then she said, "By the way, I have no intention of taking care of you. You're not family." I regretted even the slightest expectation I had of her. After that, Cindy took care of Derek as if I didn't exist. Derek, instead of defending me, said,
"I thought this one could at least handle household chores. Sorry for the disappointment, Mom."
I couldn't believe it. He called me this one? A disappointment? Those are my lines. What am I to Derek? Why did he marry me? I pondered these questions, but my fever was high and I fell into a deep sleep. When I woke up, Derek and Cindy were gone, and there was a WhatsApp message saying, "Feel better. So I'm going out with Mom. Get well soon. You're a nuisance." I found it so absurd that I couldn't stop laughing. That was last year's Thanksgiving. Since then, I haven't seen Cindy. Despite all this, Derek acts like nothing happened and says, "We're going to my parents' house next year, right?" I have no idea what he's thinking or how he feels. Then something happened. It was Christmas, which is also our wedding anniversary. It's been a tough year since we got married, but I thought we could at least enjoy today. That's what I thought. In the morning, I asked Derek, "Do you remember what today is?" He thought for a moment and said, "Yeah, I remember." I cooked all his favorite dishes and even ordered a beautifully decorated cake. But that night, no matter how long I waited, Derek didn't come home. Did something happen to him? Worried, I called him and he finally answered. "Hey, where are you? I'm getting worried." "I'm at my parents' house." I was so shocked my mind went blank. "You're at your parents' house? Why?" I was still processing this when he said, "I didn't realize until you reminded me this morning. I bought a cake as a surprise for Mom, and she was so moved when she cried. I'm glad I could spend Christmas with family. You're occasionally useful." I was furious. "You know today is our wedding anniversary, right? I've been waiting for you." Realizing he messed up, Derek fell silent before finally saying, "Who are you to criticize me?" He came home late that night looking grumpy. After a long silence, I broke the ice. "Why did you marry me?" According to Derek, marriage was just a step for a career advancement. Being married is a status symbol in society and at work. All of his bosses are married, he said. He married me because I seemed like someone who would quietly obey him. The proof is that all of Derek's bosses are married. But after marriage, he felt suffocated with less time for Cindy. He said he's only staying married to protect his reputation. He admitted that bringing up divorce papers was just for the fun of seeing me distressed. However, he told me that he was just doing it without getting divorced because it would affect his reputation if he divorced me right away. At this point, I was completely over him. "I can't do this anymore." He retorted, "Who cares what you think? Just keep being a housekeeper. I talked to Mom and I'll be moving back home and commuting from there." Luckily, our place and his parents' home aren't too far apart, so commuting isn't an issue. I vehemently opposed living with his parents, but he insisted on living near them. Fortunately, he moved back to his parents' place, so Cindy never came to our house. "I want a divorce," he said. "Go ahead and try," and left with a few belongings. After he left, I contacted someone. For the next few days, life was peaceful. The house felt lighter without Derek. But the day before Thanksgiving, I got a call from an unexpected Cindy. I thought it was a wrong number, but when she called again, I answered. She was unusually polite. "Sorry to bother you. Would you like to spend Thanksgiving together? It's lonely being alone and we should get along." It was unlike anything Cindy had ever said. When I visited their home that day, she greeted me with a smile, which felt creepy. Derek was in the living room, but avoided eye contact. Cindy said, "I heard from Derek that divorce isn't good for public image." She was smiling, but her eyes weren't. She was desperate to keep us from divorcing, even if it was just for show. "Do you consider me family, Cindy?" For the first time, I talked back. She flinched but recovered, saying, "Of course, Iris." I burst into laughter. "You can't even remember my name and you call me family?" She had never called me by name. It was always housekeeper, or at worst, hey. Angry at my audacity, she snapped, "Enough, Derek, get rid of this stupid housekeeper." Derek seemed to be pondering about his career. "Did you get a call from the boss? It must be about a promotion." "Well, you might be right. Listen, Irene, if you keep talking like that, I'll divorce you." "Derek, you're getting promoted soon. Unlike a failure like you. He'll need a wife from a good family this time." It appears that Derek got a personal call from his boss. "Oh, really?" I replied. "If you get it, then act like a housekeeper and do your job. What are you standing there for? Can't you even make a coffee?" Cindy said. So I quietly made coffee, slammed the mug on the table, and dropped a bombshell. "Who are you talking about?" being a wife or a housekeeper. I'm a stranger to you now, so I'm leaving. Both of them looked shocked. What do you mean? Derek asked. I already filed for divorce. You can't just file on your own. Forgery is a crime. Did you commit a crime? He yelled. What are you talking about? You had 10 divorce papers at home. It was great for practice. Besides, you told me to file if I could, so I did. Derek seemed to remember and looked regretful. But he quickly regained composure and said, I'm future executive. You'll be the one regretting. He continued to insult me, calling me a leftover in my 30s, among other things. Annoyed, I said, if you're unhappy with the divorce, let's go to court. I've recorded your verbal abuse, so it won't look good for you. Oh, and this conversation too. Looking forward to our next meeting, and left. Days later, I went to a certain place. I had taken a day off from work. I had an appointment, so I was let in right away. When I entered the room, there was someone looking surprised. It was Derek. Sitting a little away from him was his direct boss, the department head. What are you doing here? Ignoring Derek, I walked straight to the department head and sat across from Derek. The room fell silent, and the department head began to speak. Derek, is it true you got divorced? Derek hesitated for a moment and then started spouting nonsense. I've never been happy since I got married. She doesn't do housework because we're a 2-income family and she even takes all my salary. I've reached my limit. That's a complete lie. When we got married, Cindy had imposed strange conditions on me. First, to be perfect at housework and to give all my salary to Derek. I thought I had been doing as told. I cleaned and even prepared balanced meals considering Derek's health. Derek would give me a small allowance and take the rest. So I had no money to spend freely. So everything this man is saying is a complete lie. The idea that housework is solely a woman's job, regardless of whether it's a 2-income family or a housewife, is absurd. I did get divorced, but there's absolutely nothing wrong with me. I'm the victim for marrying a crazy woman, Derek rambled on, taking advantage of our silence. So I'd like to accept the promotion. Hearing that, the department head responded, You seem to be misunderstanding something. Whether an employee is married or not, I never change my evaluation based on that. What you just said suggests you see your spouse as nothing more than a tool, doesn't it? Derek remained silent. Don't you have anything to say to me? I asked. Derek scoffed. What? I'm the one who should be thanked for marrying someone like you. The department head began to speak softly. He has a younger brother, and watching his younger brother's marriage makes him happy. His younger brother has always been sincere and kind, and his sister-in-law may not be physically strong, but she's devoted and always smiling. They have a daughter, and she's grown up to be a good, honest child. Probably because she's been watching her parents. The department head and his wife couldn't have children, so they think of their niece as their own daughter. Derek looked indifferent to the story. That's precisely why I can't forgive you, said the department head, his face turning red with anger. Then I decided to reveal a truth I had kept from Derek. It's okay, Uncle Cyrus. Hearing that, Derek exploded. What are you thinking? Calling the department head uncle is disrespectful. See, she's crazy. The department head looked at him coldly. The one being disrespectful is you. You've been calling my lovely niece crazy. It's nothing but unpleasant. What? I've kept quiet, but this man is my dad's older brother. In other words, my uncle. The story of Uncle Cyrus told about his younger brother's family was actually about my family. Uncle Cyrus and his wife, who couldn't have children, have always cherished me, their niece, as if I were their own daughter. When I first met Derek and found out he was under Uncle Cyrus, I was genuinely surprised. I debated whether to tell him, but I was working in a group company and didn't want to be accused of nepotism, so I kept it a secret. Of course, I joined my current company on my own merit. No one knows that Uncle Cyrus and I are related. Our last names are common, so Derek probably never thought twice about it. I had asked Uncle Cyrus to keep it a secret until I said something. He might think we would have met at family gatherings, but we never even had a wedding ceremony. Officially, we said we didn't have time or that I was too shy, but the real reason was different. A wedding is a waste of money, Derek and Cindy had said. He probably didn't want to spend time and money on me, whom he saw as nothing more than a housekeeper. I wanted to wear a wedding dress too. My mom looked so beautiful in the pure white dress she wore in the wedding photo with my dad that's been displayed in our living room for many years. I had dreamed of that moment since I was a little girl. When my parents offered to help financially, she said, "Are you kidding me? Both parties should contribute to that." Well, I definitely won't. So we only had a small family dinner with just our parents. By the way, Derek didn't even offer to pay for the small family dinner, so I paid for it all. My parents gave me some money afterwards, saying I should keep it. I chose the place for the small family dinner, but Cindy made a snide comment. "This place is mediocre." The day after the dinner, my mom called and said, "Irene, are you sure you want to marry Derek? His mom seems a bit off too. We're really worried." I was also feeling uneasy about Derek's transformation. He was kind when we were dating, but now I realize he was probably just desperate to secure a convenient housekeeper. That's what I realized now. Back then, I was naive enough to think he would go back to being the Derek I knew and protect me from Cindy. "Thanks for worrying, but Derek is usually very kind. I'm sure he'll protect me," I assured my parents, who didn't press the issue after that. However, I had asked Uncle Cyrus to keep an eye on Derek. Learning the truth, Derek was visibly shocked. "There's no chance of a promotion. I can't forgive how you've treated Irene, but you've done something else unforgivable, and you know it," Uncle Cyrus said. Derek went pale. I couldn't care less what happens to him. "Goodbye. We'll never meet again," I said and left the room. Later, Uncle Cyrus told me a shocking truth. Derek had been taking day trips with Cindy under the guise of business trips and charging all the expenses to the company. Because Derek was vigilant at work, the checks were lax. What surprised me more was that Cindy had suggested it. Derek was fired, and Cindy is also under investigation as an accomplice. I couldn't care less, but I was utterly disgusted. I heard they'll be returning home soon, so I decided to sue them for emotional distress. I know they've been hoarding money, so I intend to make them pay. As for me, I was recently promoted to the first female managerial position. I thought I had given up on marriage, but I was introduced to the son of one of Uncle Cyrus's friends, and we've been spending more time together. He proposed to me recently, and I met his parents, who are very kind and remind me of my own parents. I'm very happy now.
Today, we're dining at the exclusive restaurant I've always admired, the Platinum Table. I was thrilled. My name is Harumi. I'm 40 years old with no children. I work part-time in an office job. My husband is Charlie, 42 years old. Today, my father-in-law and mother-in-law said, "Let's dine out once in a while. We'll treat you." So we took them up on the offer. My mother-in-law explained why she chose this restaurant. You can see the courtyard from the room, and the courtyard is very beautiful, especially at night when it's all lit up. Truly a luxurious restaurant. With a courtyard, that's even quite enchanting. To be able to enjoy a delicious dinner there, I put on makeup, something I rarely do, and eagerly went out to the gathering with Charlie. "We have a reservation. The name is Westwick," said father-in-law to the waitress who came to greet us. "Mr. Westwick, yes, we have been expecting you. Right this way, please." The waitress who greeted us was also dressed in lovely clothes, so elegant. We were then led to the lounge area and were served aperitifs and olives as appetizers at the grand table. In the middle of the big table was a large pink lump that looked like a rock. "What is this?" I asked. "Could it be a power stone? It's almost too large for me to hold." "This is Himalayan rock salt. You're supposed to sprinkle this on the steak when it's served," father-in-law explained. Wow, I was surprised by father-in-law's explanation. I never knew there was such a beautiful pink salt. Everything was incredible, but contrary to my exhilarated mood, something odd began happening at the restaurant. No matter how long we waited, there was no sign of us being led to our dining seats. The olives were all gone, and the glasses that held the aperitifs were starting to dry. An hour had passed when father-in-law, looking a bit nervous, stopped a passing waitress and asked, "Excuse me, we had a reservation for 6 p.m. under Westwick. Is our meal not ready yet?" The waitress replied, "Mr. Westwick, I have noted your name. Please wait just a little longer," and then left without returning. At first, mother-in-law had been saying things like, "Let's wait patiently." But by the time 2 hours had passed, even she started saying this is too much. And rightly so. We had a reservation for 6 p.m. and now it was 8 p.m.
But our meal still hadn't started. We should have been done eating by now, but instead we were still waiting in the lounge area. Isn't this something that just shouldn't happen, especially at a high-end restaurant? Even if it weren't a fancy place, it would still be strange. Mother-in-law called over another passing waitress. "Excuse me, we have been waiting for 2 hours since being told to wait a little bit after making our reservation." The waitress said, "Oh," and ran off. After a while, a woman dressed in a classy outfit came out, different from the waitress we had spoken to before. We knew at once that she was the manager. She must have been around 50 years old. With her hair pulled up and pinned into what looked like a hair tower, she seemed even taller. Introducing herself with this towering hairstyle, she said, "I'm Newport, the manager of this restaurant. I apologize for the inconvenience this evening." Mother-in-law repeated, "We are the Westwicks. We made a reservation, didn't we, for 6 p.m.?
"Yes, indeed, you did,"
Miss Newport confirmed. "Then why didn't you seat us for our meal at 6 p.m.? Mother-in-law pressed further.
"Well, I'm terribly sorry. At 5:30 p.m., we had some last-minute guest who asked to be seated at 6 p.m.
This hair tower explained. "What?" Mother-in-law raised her voice at this unexpected turn of events. "I booked a table 2 weeks ago, didn't I?"
"We have your reservation."
"Then isn't it ordinary practice to say that the reservations are full because of some sudden booking, rather than this?" At this point, Miss Newport began to say,
Yes, so we let you into the restaurant at 6 p.m., right? We guided you to the place to wait at the time of your reservation. However, since another reservation suddenly came in, we thought we would guide you as soon as the room becomes available."
It seemed as though she thought that was perfectly normal. Wait, I have never heard that it's okay just because the time we were guided to the lounge area was according to the reservation. My mother-in-law was outraged, but Miss Newport shrugged her shoulders and blurted out,
"You should understand if you hear the position of the person who made the sudden reservation."
What?
"It was the CEO of Evergreen Electronics."
Evergreen Electronics? I know the name, at least. It's a big company around here.
"So we will prioritize that, won't we?"
Miss Newport said as if it were a matter of course, but my mother-in-law bravely stood up to her. "It's not acceptable to have an upper and lower rank among customers. It's supposed to be first come, first served." Despite my mother-in-law's shouting, Miss Newport didn't flinch.
"That's your selfish assumption, isn't it? The rules of our restaurant are different. We are a gathering place for winners. Poor people, please go home."
Miss Newport arrogantly said. At the hair tower, the sheer audacity of her attitude felt like it grew 3 meters taller. Well, it must be my imagination. Poor person? My father-in-law's voice cracked at hearing this. For what it's worth, my in-laws are not poor. They're quite wealthy, in fact. But Miss Newport, glancing at me in surprise, laughed through her nose and said to my father-in-law,
"You are not a CEO, are you?"
"Well, I'm not a CEO," my father-in-law timidly affirmed. My mother-in-law's anger only intensified from there. "Hey, all professions are equal, aren't they?" These words were snapped out, but Miss Newport dismissed them lightly.
"That's impossible. Excuse me, but what's Mr. Westwick's occupation?"
Father-in-law stammered his reply. "I teach archaeology at the university."
"Well, please spend your life digging for ammonites at archaeological sites then."
Miss Newport sharply said this with a scoff.
"You don't need social interaction for digging ammonites, do you? As I said before, our place is a social venue for the winners."
Then Miss Newport further criticized my mother-in-law.
"Mrs. Westwick, there's a problem with you too. Your appearance exudes poverty."
"What?" Mother-in-law raised her voice. Being suddenly criticized about her clothing would naturally make anyone angry.
"I have heard that in Japan, Osaka lady wears shirts with leopard faces on them. Is that what you're wearing?"
A leopard? It wasn't a leopard, but mother-in-law was wearing sparkly clothing. By that time, Miss Newport's gaze had completely shifted to looking at them as low income.
"Oh, how distasteful. Osaka lady must haggle in department stores too, right? Wearing those kind of clothes."
That's an awful prejudice. I'm from Japan, so I know, but there really aren't people who haggle in department stores. And for what it's worth, the clothes described as what an Osaka lady might wear are likely branded and expensive. Everything, professions and all, is built from prejudice in Miss Newport's mind. Poor people should go to the drive-thru of a fast food restaurant. Your table might be ready around 10 p.m., I was thinking. But a rushing poor person is out of place here and has spoiled our mood. Please go home. Then Miss Newport said to the waitress behind her, as soon as these people leave, make sure to sanitize. Poverty attracts more poverty, you know. Mother-in-law angrily stood up and said, enough, we're leaving. Really, the nerve of her, I have never felt so disgusted. Eventually, the four of us discussed what to do, and father-in-law suggested, let's go to our usual sushi bar. So we went to a sushi bar. It was quite upscale and I was really satisfied, but mother-in-law continued to fume. What was with that condensation? It was so unreasonable. And what's this about an Osaka lady? I can't help but be curious about what an Osaka lady even is. Well, Osaka lady refers to, I began to explain, it's about women who live in Osaka, Japan. Not all of them, of course, but there's an image that they like inexpensive yet good things, are cheerful, have loud voices, are caring, and like animal pattern clothing. Like the clothing I'm wearing now, for example? Well, there's a wide variety, so there might be something similar. I found Miss Newport's familiarity with Osaka lady amusing, but mother-in-law's anger was at its peak. That Miss Newport should be brought down to poverty by those she looked down on as poor people. At mother-in-law's intensity, the three of us gulped down our prized Toro without chewing. Now, less than a month from that incident, mother-in-law contacted us. We are going to the platinum table. What? I exclaimed over the phone. Even though we were bound to have another unpleasant experience, why? It's for dinner, of course. Let's go at the same time as last time, 6 p.m. Okay. They invited us, you know. Mother-in-law said with a laugh and then hung up the phone. That weekend, we were back at the platinum table by 6 p.m. As soon as we arrived at the restaurant, the waitress was already at the entrance to greet us. Mr. and Mrs. Westwick, I presume we have been expecting you, she said. And we were seated as soon as we were served pre-dinner drinks and olives in the lounge area. You could tell the room facing the courtyard was the best one, and the dishes that came out were all incredibly delicious. Caviar and herbs were served with each dish, all cooked with great care, a feast for both the eyes and the tongue. Towards the end, a steak was served and we were told to eat it with Himalayan rock salt. The steak's deliciousness, its savory taste, and the depth of the Himalayan rock salt, it was heavenly. I felt like I was floating to the sky. The garden lit up as we looked around, made me feel like a queen. Such a dreamy time came to an end, and as we were having sherbet, Miss Newport came over. Mr. and Mrs. Westwick, how was your meal?
Yes, it was absolutely delicious. My mother-in-law smoothly replied as she sipped desert wine. Seeing this, Miss Newport looked relieved and began to apologize.
I sincerely apologize for causing any discomfort due to our rudeness on this occasion.
But after everyone finished their sherbet, mother-in-law said, thank you for your meal. I suppose we won't be meeting again.
What?
Miss Newport exclaimed. We came here only because you said you wanted to talk. We ate the food because it was suddenly served to us, but what's the point? What's the point after all the eating and drinking, mother-in-law? Do you understand what's going on? Despite having finished her meal so neatly, mother-in-law started questioning Miss Newport even more. Miss Newport's voice became quieter, and then she confessed to her wrongdoing.
We are a social venue for winners, telling a poor person to leave and such disrespectful remarks.
That's right.
So when you said that, my response was, oh really? Then let's terminate the deal?
Mother-in-law slowly and quietly placed her glass down. Miss Newport's face turned even paler. Miss Newport's tower of hair seemed about 5 inches lower than before, and then the spire of that hair tower fell. What a profound apology.
I'm so sorry. I never thought Stellar Tech Group would cancel all the deals.
So that's what it's about, I realized. Mother-in-law was the head of the General Affairs departments of Stellar Tech Group, which had branches all over the U.S. Whether it was a closing ceremony of the manager's training, appreciation gatherings, group dinners, on company trips, or intergroup mingling, it was the General Affairs department that made the arrangement. Mother-in-law was the top of that department. She must have also instructed the subsidiaries not to use this restaurant. The one who arbitrarily decided that you're not a winner if you're not a CEO and not a winner if you wear leopard print was you, wasn't it? Mother-in-law sneered and then said, don't underestimate the General Affairs Department and don't underestimate people who aren't CEOs.
I truly apologize for the rudeness. I'm so sorry.
Miss Newport bowed even lower. What exactly are you sorry for? Would you like to tell me? Mother-in-law said, looking down at her.
I wrongly judged you, Miss Westwick, as not being a winner based on appearance.
Mother-in-law sneered again and waved her hand. That's not it at all. You don't understand why I'm angry. I look back and forth between mother-in-law and Miss Newport. You know what? I'm the head of the General Affairs Department at Stellar Tech Group, and let me be clear about this. The General Affairs Department is like a jack of all trades for the company's employees. Anything and everything comes to the General Affairs Department. No matter who it is, whether it's about their family or social life, people come to the General Affairs Department with their concerns. Our job is to be there for them and support them in whatever they need. And so when you think about it, Mother-in-law said, and then slammed the table. The idea of winners and losers judging people by your own standards is incredibly audacious. Is the CEO the only winner? That's laughable. Every single person is struggling and living their life. If you're going to label them winners or losers, then unless a person thinks they have lost, everyone's life isn't a loss. You can say it's in the middle of the game, so as long as you don't think you have lost in life, you haven't lost. Others shouldn't be arbitrarily judging and meddling in that. As someone who's always been there for others, I have never judged anyone as a winner or loser in my role in general affairs. Father-in-law said, in that sense, being involved in the world of archaeology, something I've been interested in since I was a child, makes me a winner at the moment. Though ordinary, enjoying casual conversations with Hermie and having a family like that makes me feel like a winner too. I couldn't be outdone and proudly said, though it's a part-time job, I am contributing to the company. I'm on good terms with Charlie, so I feel like a winner too at the moment. Now, about this clothing you arbitrarily labeled as poor person, oh, I'm really sorry. Do you think that being rich means only having something with a huge brand logo?
And what do you mean by that?
This is a custom-made piece, you know. It costs $70,000, but if you didn't realize that, isn't it your lack of discernment that caused this situation? Shall I tell you what brand it is? Mother-in-law mentioned a foreign brand that seemed out of my reach. Miss Newport somehow stifled a scream. Mother-in-law casually pinched the chest area of the garment and smiled. Look at this. Each decoration is hand-stitched. This is practically an art piece, and to think I wore it to a garden and a store that I thought had the dignity to match. Your lack of discernment is truly regrettable. Miss Newport weakly sat down and began to cry, looking down. Well, shall we go? After a while, mother-in-law stood up. Miss Newport quickly raised her bowed head and clung to mother-in-law's feet.
I sincerely apologize. You don't have to pay.
Mother-in-law said, shaking off Miss Newport, who was clinging to her leg. I will pay. We only came because you called us. The food came out, though we didn't order it, so we ate it. But it's troubling if you accuse us of dining and dashing, and it's annoying to be accused of that by someone who judges winners and losers. Consider this a farewell gift and accept it gratefully, she added. But Miss Newport clung on even desperately.
Oh, if Stellar Group abandons me, both this restaurant and I will truly become losers. Please have mercy.
Enough. Mother-in-law snapped, cutting off the cries. You're not a loser until you admit you have lost. Were you listening to me? Well, maybe not. With your attitude of arbitrarily judging customers' wins and losses, maybe you don't have the mind to understand such things. What really influences the direction of life is things like fate or luck. In that sense, this restaurant is facing a tough battle with strong headwinds ahead, but think of it as payback for looking down on people and judging them. Mother-in-law finally shook off Miss Newport. Still crying and clinging on, Miss Newport heard mother-in-law say, you prioritize Evergreen Electronics over us, and they are a client of Stellar Tech Group. Their CEO probably won't come anymore. Soon after, the Platinum Table went out of business. It seems the location became a franchise restaurant. Since mother-in-law's company was the top customer, it seemed natural. Miss Newport tried to negotiate work at the restaurant but was refused, and since she was known in the community as the woman who closed that fine restaurant, she still hasn't found work. It appears father-in-law heard this from the restaurant manager when he went there with his university students. The manager was wryly smiling, saying, I can't pick up a hand grenade, you know. A month later, mother-in-law came back from work with an abundance of flower bouquets. That day, Charlie and I rushed to celebrate with her. It was so much to carry home that I had to ask for delivery, mother-in-law said, delighted. The day marked mother-in-law's retirement from the company.
Our employees are our greatest asset. The words mother-in-law had displayed in her room epitomized her approach to her HR work, as she stood close with everyone from part-timers to full-time staff. She even received many flowers from the part-timers. Well, I will remain with the company as a consultant for another 5 years, but after being treated like this, I wonder what face I should wear to the office tomorrow. My mother-in-law laughed. You have received so many bouquets and cards. You're blessed. Surely you're a winner at the company, aren't you? I'm far from done. I'm still in the middle of the game. I haven't won or lost yet, came the spirited reply. The cards also had words written on them. We look forward to another 5 years. I was so moved that I was on the verge of tears when mother-in-law caught me. Oh my goodness, are you crying? Pollen? It's my allergies. It's rare to find someone like mother-in-law so beloved and respected by her employees. I believe she will continue to be my proud mother-in-law. That's what I thought.
I was happy and making good money. You owe $30,000. I was shocked when my credit card company called me on the phone. What? There's no card? After that, I stopped the payment right away. My husband called me 1,000,000 times while he was away. I got it all and did something about it. I am 29 years old and my name is Haley. I work for a company now as a boss. Christopher is my husband. We met in college and are the same age. This year marks the 3rd year that we've been married. It seems like a lot of people around me quit their jobs when they got married, but I'm still writing this. I earn more money than my husband. We don't talk about it, but I worry about our future when my husband's only source of income is gone. I'm sure he does too. My husband, on the other hand, is not a pimp. We each have our own pocket, and we split the cost of living 50-50. I can spend the rest of the money however I want. This meant that I wasn't too unhappy with the fact that we were working together and that our lives were going well. Oh, I guess I spent a little too much this month too. I thought as I looked at the debit notice email on the train ride home. That being said, I should look again to see if any services I haven't used in a while are still set up. That's what I thought as I closed the email. That time will probably never come. I couldn't remember the password to get to the page where I could